Hello everyone, I'm Aeterna with a new stream today, and let's get going because time is going fast these days. I'm kinda busy today. So first, like and subscribe to this guy if you like his content. Avowed goes from great to mediocre every minute.
Nope,
Cover
this is
up.
not Skyrim 2. This is, rather, everything Dragon Age Veilguard tried so hard to be. But I'm honestly torn with this one, because next to GTA 6, this was the game I was most looking forward to this year. I'm a sucker for high fantasy medieval crap like this, weird looking fish people, Last of Us mushroom face customization, magic with guns. But after playing for a while, I started to feel limited. Not that it's not fun, no. In fact, this might have some of the most...
That's never fun in a game that you try to play a role, good or bad or neutral. It's never fun to be limited.
polished and well-rounded first person.
Because I heard they don't leave you to play evil as much as other games, so that's kind of bad. Because I always like to play like a pure good and then a pure evil playthrough. They are always fun.
It's an RPG combat I've ever...
And sometimes even a third one that is neutral, like how I will go in a real life situation. Like more good, but on little small bad things, I will go like evil. So this is how you play too, this type of games.
Played around with. There's a decent leveling system. Story's good. Lots of gameplay variety. However, it's that once again, the dialogue and consequences feel bland in the world, although...
Yeah, the consequences matter a lot too, so yeah, for this type of playthroughs, for pure evil and pure good.
Heavily detailed and gorgeous, comes at the price of feeling small and empty. The trailers really made it feel like we had that freedom of Baldur's Gate.
Empty, I don't think other reviews said it felt empty, but they felt limited in their decisions and consequences, like they could not be evil that much.
3 Outer Worlds or Kingdom Come 2, but rather, it's all about combat. But then I realized something. Dang, this game is fun regardless of the unreal expectations I put on it. So Avowed is pretty good.
Yeah, that's great. I saw the combat is way better than Skyrim. Than vanilla Skyrim, at least not modern.
And name you my envoy.
I am the Kev boy.
Venture forth in the name of your homeland.
Hopefully no
Alright,
spoilers,
here we go. What? Why are my eyelids peeled back like that?
because I don't play it yet. 10 NPC.
In the chair, baby.
Let's go. Damn, it looks bad. This character looks bad.
No, don't black screen the pirate fight. Come on. I
Okay.
can't believe what happened after the screen went black. What
You woke
a
up on the
fight
beach.
Hey, what are you doing with that stuff?
You're alive. Thank the gods.
I'll move fast with the spoilers. I don't want no spoilers.
Help their soul.
Whoa. She's dead, dude.
What if she murdered that soldier and she's just trying
Also,
to...
this is more like
I agree.
We don't have to like each other, but we can all get out.
I'll just
alive.
skip from
I
parts
left
to
my boat
parts
at the edge of the
to
island.
skip most of the spoilers.
It should still be there.
I'm leaving her here.
Ah,
But
here's the key.
still see his comments.
Nah, I think I'll leave her there. Alright, see you later, Elora, or whatever your name is. I'm on fire. Yes, I can. Oh, there is crouch slide in this game.
Easy, careful.
I thought the video was more like comments on it than playthrough.
That's awesome. I'm getting them. Energy sword!
He likes the stealth. It looks good.
You guys didn't see that, right? They saw it. Oh, yeah? You think that throwing spears is cool?
Damn, I love the throwing of spears. Hopefully you can do that too.
Was that a fire spell that I just picked up? Yup. It was the common grimoire of elements.
Grimoire.
Huzzah!
The spellcasting looks amazing too.
How should we do this?
Lightning bolt! No! Oh, frick, he's big.
Looks like the combat is punchy with the sword also.
Look at that guy. So weak. Lightning! Oh shit, I should not be in the water.
The shock looks awesome. Yeah, the combat looks great
You
until now.
can't kill me.
Is that Elora? Everyone's dead.
You need to find the ambassador, and I need to find the claviture.
Mhm.
How's about we partner up?
No. Well, I don't really have a choice, do I?
I didn't survive my military days by being the slowest one in the squad.
Looks like someone wants to get burned to death.
Then the fire also looks amazing.
You sure
Also
you want
love the
this
color palette, the gradient.
Who's behind me? Anybody else?
I like it more colorful, like
No.
That's one for
the
Since I'm dead, Kai,
Baldur's
show a
Gate,
little respect.
what they had in the first trailer.
Alright, it's official. Not a true RPG.
Yeah, you cannot kill chickens. That's never good.
So you can't just like attack anyone. Alright, hold on.
You cannot attack anyone.
Flame on.
You cannot attack
Stab.
common NPCs.
Stab.
That's bad.
Alright, hold on. I'm not drunk enough for this yet. There we go. Perfect.
You should be
Now
able
I'm
to
in
attack
control.
anything.
Alright, do your leaping slam attack.
Damn, I love the
I have an attack
combat
too.
with
I
the
got
sword
this
of
bad boy.
the NPC. Of the assistant
Wow,
we
that
have.
So this game's
Hi.
pretty easy for being on like the hardest difficulty. Yes.
It's kinda like Skyrim or like... It reminds me of this other game, like Dragon's Dogma. A lot, so that's great. So it's always good. I like more of those.
Whoa,
Okay.
you really thought, hey? You really thought it. Whoa, 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 whoa.
The monsters
What is
look
that?
cool.
I'm coming to help you kill this guy. Check this out. Raging Ball. The wand isn't very effective versus bear technology.
It looks like the monsters are diversified until now. So that's great.
But you know what I can do? This.
Bad feeling about whatever that bear.
Also love that we have a rifle in this one. Kinda like Fable 3, which I'm playing right now and loving it also. Because it has the rifle. And pistol.
Jumping on.
It's a person, dude. Get over it.
Options in the
Drawn in winter. One-handed melee unique. No. Ah, oh shoot, I need the new weapon. I want the new weapon.
The weapons look pretty creative and unique too.
Drawn in winter, combined with the grimoire of elements, of which I have no magic to use. So I cast Bonk.
I love that you can combine all those. Like in Skyrim.
Head. I cast Spicy Water. Oh, that didn't work. Just run. Just get out of there. Oh, these are level 2 guys. I'm just in a high level zone. I just gotta leave. Run, Kai, run!
Damn, I love those. Like Black Ops, like Call of Duty escape type of running and sliding.
Run! Run, Kai, we've been discovered.
Still
Run!
died.
Run! Yep, it's all we got. That looks cool, man.
The wall looks amazing too.
Yeah, that looks really cool. The map is...
Yeah.
Get over here, go and perish.
Textures look amazing.
Why is it that I can only kill the monkey things? I think I'm at the wrong city. Yeah, I'm definitely at the wrong city.
Yeah, that looks kinda natural. Hopefully they make a patch where you can go really evil. With like you can kill anybody at least. Or less important NPCs with side quests and all types of monsters. That would be cool. At least do that if you cannot make more consequences which are really evil in the dialogue.
Unless, no, maybe I'm just entering the city from the wrong side.
Or maybe add the DLC where you can be really evil.
I did what the game did not
Later.
want me to do. Open the gates!
Use the city's main gate until we get word to open the side ones.
We gotta use the city's main gate. Outlaw Bowman? Oh, dang. What's on the spiders?
Of the
They've
first
learned
person.
to use bows!
We could send you back.
Oh, it looks when you look at your
Test
body
this once.
and
I'm
things
not
happen,
accepting
like
your help.
you get that arrow in the chest, like
So
before.
blind.
Svef, stimulant that when smoked or chewed imbues the user with a temporary sense of urgency and energy. Svef is the steroids of Avowed.
I hope you weren't thinking of confronting your killer.
Do I look like I care about your opinion?
No,
I've been given another chance.
you already
in
look
life.
ugly.
I need to be more thought
You can
out,
confront
more
anything.
Methodical. The second chance is a gift, and with that comes the great respect.
Damn, love how the city looks. It looks
Ability
so
to-
amazing.
What happens here does not concern you. Walk away.
Nah, he dies.
Kind of like those
Everyone
anime
here,
fantasy
you
games,
all
but
dead.
in a more realistic
Leonard,
setting.
this is gonna hurt.
Yep, for you. Hit him with the big tombstone. Freaking.
Love the boss.
Back alley's getting torched.
Why he's touching this guy that is already on fire? Doesn't make sense. You see this boss.
Wow, look at that. It's so embarrassing, honestly.
I love how he's charging his
Oh, so embarrassing. Hit him
axe or
with
whatever,
this.
like a
This.
spear.
It's like weak spots, and now I can exploit him. This is a long fight.
When you use it, it's like a spear.
It's a very long fight. That attack is so frustrating. No. Oh, freaking.
Damn. I thought that attack was kind of slow, but he still got
Yoda.
killed by it.
Yoda's dead. Wait, so if I just stand up here and then I swap my weapon to the gun, oh, I can.
Do you have like, can you be an archer
Can't
too?
get me up here.
I never saw crossbows and bows
I'm
until
gonna
now.
keep going on. This is great.
It's not doing the job.
Yeah, it is. Look at it. Now I'm gonna pause the video
Oh,
to look
shit.
really closely. You'll notice that he
That's so
actually
cool.
has a ranged attack that I didn't catch before. That's
Mhm.
just a little fun fact for you all. Oh! Big High, you need to be my human.
Capacity.
I need to regen my health. I'm really trying to just kite this guy.
So that you can go up and down everywhere around the boss.
All right. So now there's this. So how do we? I bet there's a way to cheese this guy. There has to be. Maybe we can like chase him into the city. No, now the rest of the city wants to fight me.
I think if you go around objects, the AI will not catch you. Maybe it's not that good.
Well, these are level 2. Oh my gosh, this is just, oh my word. We can't fight this. We have to run. There's no way we can fight this. Do you see how many enemies are here?
Okay.
Shackle and this. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, what does this do? I don't know what this does.
Damn, love those bombs, grenades. Like, I love that you can throw stuff at the NPCs. Love that. Not many games, RPGs have that. But yeah, I love how the combat is really satisfying. And everything, even the weapons look so unique and so creative. It shows like the developers had really strong creative design.
Fire.
That makes sense.
Fire now. It's me.
It's me you're looking for.
Are you guys? Oh, they're low levels. They're low
You
levels.
can hit
Get
with a
'em.
shield too. Awesome.
They're low levels. They're low levels. Get them.
Damn, it's really
Push
punchy.
her down the stairs, Kai.
Not like Skyrim,
She's falling down the stairs. Light her on fire. Hit her with this.
which is pretty good, but he could be puncher.
Hit her with the fire fruit. Now blast her with this. Shackle her again. And zap.
Like you have
That's
debuffs
what you
too.
get, Granny. Give me your silver frickin'. We did it. We actually did it. We killed all the locals. We saved the day.
Okay, great. So like and sub this guy if you like this.
Find anything?
Whoops. My respec in Avowed turned the combat from Skyrim into Dishonored. Now I am having a blast as an invisible parkour sword mage. When you purchase whatever. My first 15 hours in the Living Lands were a bit of a blundering affair. The game's progression doesn't pigeonhole you into any particular class path, and each time you level up you can pick abilities from fighter, ranger and wizard pools. You have this ranger, maybe bow type. That's cool. I wonder if many people go this class like in Skyrim. Within each path, certain abilities and upgrades of existing ones require you to reach a particular level, but by and large, if you see an ability you like the sound of across another of the paths, you can grab it freely. It's an interesting, that's always good if you can combine those. If one class is boring, you can combine with another to make it more interesting, less boring. That kind of flies in the face of typical RPG progression that rewards some degree of class-based specialization. Not used to this freedom leveling system and learning on my self-experimental build that often go for Elder Scrolls games, I opted for something of a spell sword, a more or less even split between melee and magic abilities. Yeah, that's what I always choose, and combine with ranger because it's more fun sometimes. Like in Skyrim I'm a mage and that's also vampire, and through the day when the magic mana still goes down, I'm using range attacks with bows and crossbows. Avowed lets you insta swap between two different weapon sets with a single key press, so I figure wand and spell book on one set and sword and shield on the other should do the trick. I love that you hold these spell books, it looks more genuine. The spell casting is like you're reading from the book already. But for reason I still don't understand, the upgrade that was supposed to make my wand power attacks explode on impact didn't seem to work, nor did this tier 2 upgrade, and the shield bash that was supposed to disrupt enemy spells and attacks felt puny and inconsistent. Shield bash, wand power attacks. Okay. As a mage I felt like a first year at Hogwarts summoning useless sparkles from my wand, and as a fighter I felt like a featherweight trying hopelessly to outmuscle heavyweight enemies. But this is on what difficulty? Should have mentioned that, I think. Then you just went clicking, and in a game where combat is a major focus, that meant that my early hours were mired by frustration. How long Avowed gives you the option to respec, but I always had a weird, that's always good, because you can try other things, and it never gets boring, the respecing part. But I always had a weird psychological block around that, maybe because doing so meant conceding that my first choice was the way to play wasn't viable. It took me deep until the final chapter of Baldur's Gate 3 to accept that a straight warlock build just didn't work as well in the game as it does in a tabletop D&D. In the past I embrace the challenge of working with a hand I've dealt myself in the hope that in the game reality would eventually come close to the fantasy I had in my head about a particular build. In Baldur's Gate 3 I waited a little too long to shift to the infinitely more fun Sorcerer Warlock, but man, I'm glad I didn't wait more than 15 hours before respecing in Avowed. In fact, without it, I'm not sure I have pushed on with the game. Respacing. This is how it's pronounced? I thought it was respecing, whatever. Soon after entering the second of the game's 4 regions, I committed to the respec, which you can do at a cheap and cheerful price. Out went all my fighter abilities and came a couple of ranger ones, and not only elevated my own experience, but felt like how the game actually wants to be played. Avowed has pretty robust underlying movement mechanics, and unlocking these abilities gave me a level of lethality and mobility that whizzed me back to my glory days of leaping around the streets of Dunwall in Dishonored. First up, there's power slide from the off. You can ground slide in Avowed by sprinting, then hitting the crouch key, but it doesn't serve that much purpose until you unlock this ability, which knocks down enemies that you slide into and stuns them when upgraded. That's great, so it's more than just an escape slide. Perhaps most important, however, is shadowing beyond, which lets you turn invisible mid-combat, completely reposition yourself and deliver magic infused backstab and for massive damage. Yeah, that's great with ranger attacks too. Suddenly, despite being a slightly armored dweeb with a spellbook in one hand and a sword in the other, I was a killing machine, charging headlong at Zurips and sliding underneath their thrown spears to knock out their feet from under them. So you can really slide underneath their spears, their attacks. That's amazing. So you can evade some of those just by sliding towards them. I never saw that in any game. I think that's pretty interesting mechanic. High level encounters marked with 3 skulls to indicate don't mess with us, that I previously have avoided, became challenging but beatable skirmishes. In large part thanks to my ability to disappear from sight. Then reappear with my flaming sword sticking out of the chest of the baddest baddie on the battlefield, sometimes yanking it out to make them one shot, dissipate into a rainbow of essence confetti. When things get a bit hairy in battle, I go invisible, scramble up to a ledge. Again, the game's parkour climb system mechanics encourage this. You can also go maybe behind the assistant, an NPC that helps you, like Kai, maybe, and he takes the damage and you do the spellcasting or the range attacks behind him. The rain, ice and fire from one height with the elevated view allowing me to aim my AoE attacks the ground much more precisely than when I'm down in the thick of things. Where before I was struggling to find breathing room as I try shifting between melee combat and ranged magic, now I'm weaponizing and maximizing the game movement mechanics, lifting the flow of battle from fairly rote ARPG combat to high level person action. Avowed is a game with a robust movement system, so it's a little strange that you can find yourself playing through it without engaging the abilities that really take advantage of it. But I'm still grateful that it makes spacing so simple that you can course correct with ease. And there are still a couple of movement exploiting attacks I love to add to my mobile mage assassin arsenal, such as the power jump that lets you leap down of a ledge into the fray with an enemy toppling ground pound. But it's clear I'm now on a path that looks really awesome. The power jump. I think we saw Kai before in this first video. We saw on this stream on a path that both works for me and complements the game core mechanics. Now I look forward to encounters instead of finding them a hindrance to explore the lovely world and powering through the solid story. It's good that it's a solid story. Some reviewers said it's not that great, like it's a bit generic. I think gamer ranks, Jake Baldino, maybe. Yes, maybe it's indicative of iffy game design that a couple of small changes to build could drastically change your experience from a tedious to a delightful one. Looking at you, Elden Ring. There's discussion to be had there, but not on my game time. And maybe there's something to be said for an RPG that gives you so much build freedom that you can make a truly crap build like I initially did. Avowed and Baldur's Gate 3 before it have gotten me to finally snap out of trying to accommodate a flawed build when it's clearly not working, and stubbornly sticking to a build on the principle that if the game allows it, then it should work. In hindsight, if I know I could change my envoy from Neville Longbottom to Corvo Aeterna in a few clicks, I have done it sooner. I think you can also do like Warlock, Sorcerer, or Wizard in Baldur's Gate 3, and it's more fun if you don't like Necromancer and Sorcerer, Necromancer and Wizard. Okay, so let's check this out too. Avowed is one of the games of all time. Of the best games, maybe you want to say, of all time. Like and subscribe to this guy if you like it.
I knew you were hiding something. You'd better have an ironclad explanation for this.
I don't know anything. Someone's trying to set me up.
Thanks for the help, Ben boy. I think I can handle it from here.
Love the Oblivion sound, background music for Avowed gameplay.
Thanks for nothing.
It's kind of
Well, it's
funny.
been a pretty slow start for game releases in 2025, with the recent Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 being really one of the first big titles we've had.
I believe you.
Now we've got another one to add to the list with Obsidian
I think Kingdom Come Deliverance is the best of the best this year, until now, at least,
Entertainment's Avowed, an action role-playing game set
because of the really great quests, interactions, and things you can do, and how you can end up if it's like Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, which I'm playing right now and didn't finish yet.
in the Pillars of Eternity universe. It was first showed off way back in 2020. And if you've been looking for that huge gangbuster game to sink your teeth into, well, then this ain't it.
Oh my.
Because while Avowed might have a few neat ideas here and there, it also feels incredibly dated and uninspired. With a lot of those early Skyrim comparisons that people made actually being quite accurate, considering this often feels like I'm playing something made in 2011.
Why is that?
You're not as dense as you look.
Right, so first things first, the premise is you're playing as the Envoy, a blank slate the player gets to customize and control, sent to the Living Lands by the Emperor of Aeterna to look into this dangerously spreading plague called the Dream Scourge. Now this is more or less like a fungal virus that takes over the mind and body of whatever it infects, and the player's initial goal is just to destroy this thing however who are simply trying to eradicate this thing and don't really care.
Okay, I don't like the story. I'll go.
Yeah, that kind of inadvertently brings me
The
on
story
to what I
spoilers,
think is
I'll
one
go.
of the weakest aspects to Avowed, and
The
that's
writing
some
part.
of its writing and dialogue.
We locked them inside the house, but we don't know what to do.
Now, I know that this is set in the Pillars of Eternity universe, and it might be my fault in some regard there that I haven't played either of those games. In the sense that it is kind of like hopping into the third season of a TV series and expecting to be able to follow what's happening. Avowed should be able to tell a sensible and cohesive story for a newcomer. And I just often found that the writing is a complete mess, coming across very heavy-handed.
That sounds ominous.
With all these different factions, characters, regions, and other very crucial plot elements spoken about frequently in this constant regurgitation of exposition-heavy dialogue.
Well, to make a long story short, I think I can lead you to the garden. 30 years of research, and I think the answer lies in a ruin called Nakukubel,
Maybe they give too much in the dialogue. I think that's what's bothering him.
which is in Shatterscarp.
More than that, though, a lot of the voice acting just really misses the mark.
A moment.
I think they want to explain the lore of the world and the world itself, so that's why. It doesn't bother me. Does it bother you? That they explain too much in the dialogue?
Of your time, if you please.
Where quite a lot of the time as well, it's like the voice itself doesn't even really match up to what the character looks like.
You seem capable enough, stranger. But the forests are not safe. As if this weren't enough proof of that.
Yeah, that one doesn't match. I think it matches an older guy. Don't you think? The voice, that voice?
Gary!
Yeah, exactly. An Italian.
Voice on an older looking NPC or vice versa.
One less thing for me to worry about. Thank you. Enjoy your skates.
It matches an Italian older guy from the mafia, maybe.
One less thing for me to worry about. Thank you. Enjoy your skates.
That matches an older guy. I think that matched the guy from before that had an Italian voice.
Less thing for me to worry about. Thank you. Enjoy your skates.
Find it really weird too how there's almost no profanity for 99% of the game, and then suddenly you hear someone drop an F-bomb or multiple F-bombs where it just really seems...
That's bad, because you also expect this game to be kind of mature. I think more mature guys play it. They're also kids, but you should be maybe able to censor those curses in the game settings if you buy it for your kid as a gift maybe and stuff like that. Don't you think?
Seems out of place.
Sorry for the mess, but it can't be helped. Not when a fucking horde of Dreamsfall screams up the path.
Not to mention why the Steel Garrote attacked my fucking home.
Okay.
Fuck.
You can also tell that the dialogue's been recorded separately from each actor, which is fine. I mean, it is kind of unrealistic to expect all the dialogue to be recorded with everyone in the same room. But what this also means is that it just sounds like everyone's having a discussion with themselves, and conversations don't really flow properly.
That's bad. Let's see.
Often sounding disjointed.
Oh, that's a long story.
I know this joke gets thrown around a whole lot, but it really has...
But he should have shown an example of that.
those early Elder Scrolls games vibes, where it's kind of like two robots talking to each other, trying to pass themselves off as a human.
Since when do you make the rules?
Since I arrived with the big sword.
Wrote this drip.
Nah, I don't think it's that obvious. Or to me at least. Is it obvious to you?
The facial animations are just outright bizarre as well, looking like things have been dolled up way too much, with certain faces being outright over-animated.
Before you ask, I know you're trying to find your supposed killer among the squad, and I really don't know much about it.
And then
their mouth looks like they're kind of shouting or speaking in like a really aggressive way when they speak really chill.
And there's other times where their faces barely move at all, like they've overdosed on Botox.
Do you think that's the case?
I don't owe you any answers. Go away.
Every time I see this kind of thing going on with a modern game, it always makes me think back to Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, and how a 20-something-year-old game running on an unfinished version of the Source engine somehow more advanced and believable than a game made in 2025.
I was just thinking the same thing.
A lot of the random NPCs you come across also just look odd.
On that point.
Like they've been randomly generated and just thrown in there without a second thought. And check out this guy, for instance.
I love how he made Bloodlines an example of this. Yeah, Bloodlines was really an amazing game for the time. And for those times as well. Really one of the best RPGs out there in the decision making and choices and outcomes.
Who looks like JonTron. The way NPCs look at each other during conversations also looks weird and inhuman, with their eye lines often being way off as well. And I swear for a couple of the NPCs that they literally just used the exact same face presets and only changed around the outfit, the hair, and the skin color.
Yeah.
And try to tell me that this is not the same person.
I am indeed.
Yeah, they kind of look the same.
The cringiest thing by far here is all the various dialogue.
But I think this happens in like at least KCD1, where they had the smaller budget. But it happens in most of the games. It's not only in Avowed. But what do you think of this?
Responses the player has, some of which are hilariously bad, coming across like Tumblr fan fiction, with these odd descriptions in brackets to describe the context of the response itself. Like this one here, put your hand on your weapon and raise your eyebrow. Nod solemnly and leave.
This is so fucking stupid.
Start to say something, then stop yourself. Or my personal favorite, smile dangerously. Yeah.
What was that? Stop doing something, then leave? Start saying something, then stop yourself. Good doing business with you. I kind of like that you can control what your reaction is also, not only what you say. I kind of love this. Well, without playing the game. At least, I don't know how it's in the game, but I think I'll like this mechanic. Do you like this or not? And why not, if you don't like it?
And then stop yourself. Or my personal favorite, smile dangerously. Yeah, smile dangerously. What the fuck does that even mean? How does someone smile dangerously?
I also like to live.
I mean, what's next, man? Teleports behind you and then says...
I think it's funny, but it works in an RPG setting. For me anyhow. Or in D&D setting.
Nothing personal, kid.
One less thing for me to worry about.
Later in the game, I will admit that this stuff does seem to be toned down a bit, and there are some legitimately interesting moral choices to make as well. Stuff along the lines of, you know...
If they're like grey area choices, they are always good. Like, there's always something good and something bad out of every choice. This is the ones that are my favorites.
Now, is it worth killing millions to save billions? There was a point where a random side character I saved during the prologue showed up again later on and actually helped to win a dispute in my favor.
Soldis, voice saved my life at Northreach.
I'm glad I am here.
Thankfully, you don't have people telling you their pronouns or anything like that either. So yeah, like the fact that like 90% of the characters you interact with here are all just snarky assholes who talk down to the player, combined with these utterly embarrassing response options, makes one of the key components to the game, that being its writing, really come across as seeming kind of weak.
One less thing for me to worry about.
For something that's supposed to be a role-playing game, I was also surprised at just how little role-playing there actually is. Walking around the various towns, for instance, they may as well be empty, because outside of a few merchants or NPCs you can interact with, everything else is just window dressing.
That's bad. And I also don't like that these NPCs don't have like schedules like in Kingdom Come and Skyrim, that they move around and do their own thing through the day and everything is like decoration. It feels a bit lifeless
People all standing
me,
around
yeah.
idly to give the illusion of the place actually being bustling.
Mhm.
You can't even attack the guards or the other NPCs
And
with
that
your
makes the place feel a bit fake.
effect. You can't break into people's homes, you can't pickpocket anyone,
It gets you out of the immersion, and you remember it's just a game.
and you can outright steal someone's belongings from right under their nose and they're not even gonna react.
Ooh, that's even worse. If they don't react to stealing, it cannot be truly bad. Yeah, they take this out for you. They take this option to be bad, to be evil. See, just standing there. What
Even
the
the
hell?
Elder Scrolls and the Fallout games would let you randomly attack otherwise friendly NPCs
Mhm.
if you wanted to, forcing
Yeah.
you to then
And by accident too, like in Kingdom Come. And you should support the consequences for that.
pay the toll for your actions.
Mhm.
And Morrowind had that infamous message if you locked a playthrough into a so-called doomed world, letting you still play on to experience that reality you created. But yeah, here we are in 2025 with a so-called AAA game that's been in development for half a decade, where
Mhm.
things have regressed so much that any kind of genuine player freedom's just been completely removed.
Damn, they don't have any physics, the items.
Meanwhile,
Look at Oblivion from 2006.
despite there being lockpicking in the game, all this is really based off is having
Nah, I really don't like that in Avowed.
actual lockpicks in your inventory. You don't need to put
It seems a bit rushed to me when I see this
skill
now.
points into it or to beat any kind of mini game or anything like that. And even the highest level
That's
chests
bad.
in the game can be opened in seconds,
Yeah, I think rushed is the best word describing it. It's a bit rushed.
assuming you've got enough picks. Even with your inventory, like the only items that even weigh anything are weapons and armor. And if you even come close to being full, you can instantly move something to your stash with the press of a button. Totally removing the whole encumbrance aspect, which is a huge element to most RPGs.
Mhm.
I can't even enjoy any basic puzzles or anything either, because as soon as I find an item I need to use, someone's going to instantly blurt out what I need to do with it.
Bet that key opens the big double doors we saw.
Damn, no. That kills the sense of adventure. Do you like that or not? The descriptions where you should use the items you found, the keys and everything like that. I think it kills the adventure. The sense of adventures. For me anyhow. Yeah.
During the sequence where you meet Maris for the first time, he's in the middle of an altercation at the local tavern. What
Mhm.
seems like a pretty harmless argument between himself and a couple other patrons. And you've seen this kind of trope a million times before. It's where someone's getting outnumbered and wailed on,
Mhm.
so you end up having to help the person out, which in turn is what gets them into your good graces. So I expected this to be a fun little distraction with a bar fight, maybe some jovial music in the background
Yeah.
as I sent these bullies packing. Or maybe kind of like that one mission in Red Dead 2 when Arthur gets drunk with Lenny and they end up
Mhm.
tearing the place apart. Only instead, it turned into a life or death fight where I turned someone into fucking dust over a simple disagreement at the local bar.
Okay.
That was something.
An altercation that literally never comes up again for the
That's kind of an extreme way to deal with it.
rest of the game. No one ever chastises you for doing it. The city guard don't get involved. Nothing.
They don't even react for that, for crimes, for killings. That's decorations only. NPCs are for decorating the place only. Some reviewers said this like in a multiplayer game they made all those NPCs for a multiplayer game and then they want to go for a single player one. So they try to do this live service first type of game. That's why they don't react. So it kills the immersion in a single player game because they made them so they don't move around because it was supposed to be lots of players going around, so it doesn't go in one player into the NPC. They don't stumble around. They don't stumble into each other, I mean.
And I don't know, man, but like anything would have been better than there being no consequences from me turning someone into vapor over a simple verbal disagreement.
Thanks, Marius. More blood to clean.
So the whole thing, like, it really feels like an RPG safe space.
Mhm.
All right. If
Yeah,
you're willing
exactly.
to, then I'm willing to talk.
I was actually playing through Kingdom Come 2 last week, and coming to this after that, like, goddamn son, it really made me realize the difference between a role-playing game and an actual role-playing game.
Yeah, I agree.
Even the stealth here is completely trivialized, letting you hide in those
Because in Kingdom Come they have schedules, they go around town, they do their stuff, they go back to sleep. If it's like Kingdom Come 1, I think it's even better than that. So I think they have lots of things to say to you and stuff like that, and they react in a bad way if you do bad things and in a good way if you do good things, so they are really reactive, so doesn't compare to this game.
Patches of grass to remain invisible, and giving you this powerful backstab ability that can often kill enemies in a single hit.
Okay.
None of which you need to unlock, level up, or earn in any kind of meaningful way. It's just this super powerful stealth attack that everyone gets, which you can always use regardless of what your build is. And you could be wearing the heaviest set of armor in the game, and yet those thin patches of grass are going to somehow render you invisible.
Okay. Oh, it should have been made more like Kingdom Come Deliverance 1. I don't know 2 because I didn't play it yet, but 1 where you wear more armor, you are more noisy, and if you wear less armor, you are less noisy.
Which finally brings me on to the main component, which is all the combat.
I think that's the best system. That's the best stealth system for an RPG game like this, where you have armor and different types of armor and weapons and stuff like that.
And when it comes to that stuff, again, there is at least a fair few options there left up to the player. Where what it mainly boils down to is if you're going to use melee weapons like swords or axes, ranged weapons like rifles and bows, or finally just all-out spells. You've got 3 main skill trees here with the fighter, ranger, and then finally wizard, which is the one I decided to go with, leaning heavily into stats like intellect and perception to really get the most benefit out of that tree.
Okay.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with melee weapons, but the brief time I spent playing around with it really felt like I was trying to hammer down a tent peg with a Frankfurt sausage.
Damn, it looks cool.
Given the whole fantasy and
love the
magic
combo with
setting
the
and the fact
kick.
that enemies drop mana essence on death, it just kind of felt to me like the game was leaning you towards spells over everything else. The prologue lets you mess around with all these different builds and weapon types, so you can get an idea of the one you might want to stick with. But even then,
But it's good that you can switch them. You can switch them at any time, and yeah, you can go different things, experience different things. Because it will be boring if that will not be the case.
spec in the skill tree is relatively cheap, costing only a couple of 100 gold coins, which is a drop in the
That's great.
ocean for the tens of thousands you're going to get during an actual playthrough. Regardless of what you go with, you've got a basic attack and a power attack, which is done by either pressing or holding down the
Damn, I love this one. It really looks like Hogwarts Legacy.
attack button. If an enemy's blocking with a shield, then a power attack's going to knock them out of it.
The magic looks punchy too when it hits the enemy.
And underneath someone's health is their switch when filled up, lets you pull off this powerful combo move.
Okay.
Outside of that, the melee weapons don't really seem to have any unique attacks or combos. Like if you hold down the different directions when attacking or anything like that, it's either just your standard or power attack, combined with blocking and parrying, all of which drains your stamina, as does dodging, which regenerates quickly after a short delay. Weirdly too, the ranged weapons like rifles and bows don't actually use any kind of ammo, instead also just draining your stamina. Because I don't know, like I guess it would have been too much effort to add in actual different arrow or bullet types, which, you know, might have added some...
So it's like a magic bow, uses your whatever stamina, mana or whatever. It doesn't use like arrows. So yeah, I think this can work. It depends how well it's done.
some depth to the ranged combat. On a positive,
I like more, I think, buying the arrows, like in Kingdom Come, using them, and then you have to find other arrows, mostly because I don't buy them, I just find them, lots of them, but at least find lots of them, so it's more rewarding than just using your stamina and mana or whatever.
there are some neat ideas here in regards to how spells can
I love that you can make the spells interact with the environment. That's amazing,
interact with the environment. For instance,
because you cannot do that in Skyrim and many other games.
you can use fire.
You can do that in Baldur's Gate, I think, but not in most of the games. Like without mods, I mean, because you can do that with mods in Skyrim too, but that's another story.
Spells to destroy vines that have blocked areas off, and ice spells or ice grenades can be thrown into the water to make temporary platform.
I like that you have grenades, because you can combine those spell type of grenades with your classes you use at the time, like ranger or like fighter or whatever, warrior.
Yeah, something that Batman Arkham City
So you can still diversify a lot when you want to, and get bored
pulled off
of
14
your
years
class.
ago.
Awesome.
One of the earliest spells you can get holds enemies in place with vines, and
Okay.
even these can be upgraded to do poison damage over time. So yeah, like there are some fun options in there if you do go digging around in the skill trees.
I agree.
The thing is though, overall, there's really not that much depth to the combat. Spells all have different elemental bases, like
I think it is. I think the combat is pretty good, especially for wizard, sorcerer, whatever.
Fire, frost, light.
I don't know. I think maybe it could be better for the fighter. Like you can do like lots more type of skills, like spinning, jumping, then you attack, like doing all these thrusts, all sorts of type of skills.
Lightning and poison, but pretty much all of these ever do is just add a damage over time effect when someone's hit by it. If enemies are standing in water, you can zap
The particle effects look amazing too.
the water, which is going to make it more effective, which, yeah, is clever, but a light...
Yeah, it's clever. But it was done previously too in... really good in Dark Messiah of Might and Magic from 2005, I think. But it's not in many games, so that's great to have also.
Lightning spell, this
type of games.
Still just a lightning spell. And it's going to achieve the same result, just using more or less essence. Fire is still just going to slowly burn someone over time, and poison is still going to slowly poison them over time as well. About the only thing that it has going for it is if you freeze someone and then hit them with any kind of explosive attack, like a grenade, it'll do a whole heap of bonus damage. But really, that's about all the depth that it has with these various elements.
Okay.
And when I was playing through this, like, I couldn't help but think back to playing Bioshock, and how when you hit enemies in that game with a fire attack, how they'd often run into some nearby water to put themselves out. Where you could even then add insult to injury.
Ooh, that's amazing. I didn't even know this existed, this mechanic. And this is very old game. Yeah, that's amazing. And then you electrocute the enemy.
Quickly zap them with electricity for some bonus damage.
Great.
Or again, looking back to Dark Messiah might...
Don't play those as well, Bioshock. I played Dark Messiah twice, finished it twice. Yeah, this is the best combat-wise in any games to date, even.
Magic, and how the ice spells could make the ground all slippery and cause enemies to trip on their ass.
Damn, I remember the graphics look so great, but they don't look as great anymore right now. But back then they looked great, they looked amazing, they look revolutionary when the Source engine came out, because it's based on the Source engine.
And look, like I'm not saying that that should be a convention in every single game.
It should be.
It was just another one of those moments that made me realize
They should improve from game to game, so yeah. They should have environmental combat, I think, which is really fun. Like in the
creative and innovative games used to be. And now we've got something like this, where you blast someone in the face with a giant fireball and they barely react.
Now they just copy games from one another, mostly.
The hell was that?
It also...
with small changes here and there, maybe.
Just results in this constant mess of different particle effects and all this other visual noise, where you're decimating enemies with every single element known to man over and over. And I actually got flashbacks to playing Suicide Squad in that regard, where it was kind of similar in how they thought that having stuff constantly flashing across the screen would make up for what was otherwise a pretty mundane and repetitive system. Doesn't really help either that you can't really control aggro in this game, and once you're detected, pretty much every single bad guy in the tri-state area knows where you are. It's like you'll often just initiate combat with a couple of enemies, and then suddenly you've got a dozen of these guys coming at you as well. The most annoying ones in that regard, I think, are the scouts who just hang back from a distance and shoot at you constantly.
So
as well as
you cannot hide behind other enemies and behind Kai, for example, and like an assistance to shield yourself from those. That's my guess. Can you do that? Tell me in the comments if you know.
Priests, who are the healing type enemies, who you often won't even realize are in the fight until you notice someone's health bar suddenly getting instantly...
Also interact anyway with the stream or the videos for me to do those, more of those.
Refilled. The enemy variety I didn't find all that interesting either. Like, it's just a whole lot of bandits, spiders, lizard men, and bears. Yeah, seriously, there are so many fucking bears in this game.
Also, it's not that diversified, unfortunately. Maybe mods can fix this on PC at least.
It's like every single enemy faction in the Living Lands has found a way to domesticate these things.
What's wrong?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Different species and factions team up against the player. Rarely do they actually infight or focus on one another, because, yeah, that would have actually been interesting. But the shit that really brings my piss to a boil is how certain NPCs just randomly spawn in a whole bunch of other enemies for you to contend with. It's just never enough for you to be able to fight one at a time, and it seems every single mini-boss, boss, or named NPC forces you to deal with another 10 ads at the same time. So instead of it being about clever or creative fights based around studying attack...
Yeah, I agree. Maybe one boss should do this, or two bosses, but not all bosses should do this. I think it's more like bothersome. It's more bothering me and they should make these creative bosses fight in different ways, like in this game from last year, forgot, Black Myth, Wukong. Yeah, they should have creative bosses fight in different ways and look different and have different type of skills and stuff like that. Do you think this is the best way to do them?
Patterns and learning when to dodge or stuff like that. It's really just about how quick you can kill all of these side bitches so you can focus on the main event.
And this looks repetitive when they just summon new, all the bosses summon new enemies for you to fight with.
And look, like, I really don't mind when games do this, if there's at least a purpose or a design principle behind it. I mean, the same thing happened a lot in Doom Eternal, for instance, but that was usually by design, because it was one of the many ways that the game let you take control of your resources. But if it's just as a lame way to increase the illusion...
And that's like a kind of slasher game. You have to kill lots of enemies. I think a slasher is called, I don't know for sure.
...genuine challenge, then it's...
That's his design. It's not like an RPG. It's like more of a slasher shooter, killing lots of monsters at the same time.
This comes across as tedious and frustrating. It's kind of like they figured...
And that's been his design for since it came out, since its inception, I think.
Well, the players got 2 AI buddies to help them out the entire time, so yeah, why not throw as many enemies as we want at them? This is where it does at least seem like your companions can make or break how well you do. Coming back to what I said before, how having Giada in your party really is a must. Marius I also thought was at least pretty handy there too, due to him also being able to pin enemies down with those magical vines, which, if nothing else, gave me some much needed breathing room. Especially when I was taking on more dudes at once than Lily Phillips. But even still, like with or without Giada, your primary method to staying alive, used to be constantly guzzling down health and essence potions, in between artificially pausing the game well to chomp down on an entire farmer's market's worth of food and drink. And none of which can be combined to make more powerful variants. Because like alchemy or cooking has ever been a mechanic in a fantasy game, has it?
Have you grounded? Good.
Fights can also be quite lengthy in Avowed as well, simply it seems because of how spongy some of the enemies are. Compared to some RPGs, enemies don't scale to the level of the player, which means there are areas and enemies you're going to be outright under-leveled for. Instead of having numbers, it's instead...
I like this mechanic, that they don't scale with the player. Maybe they should scale just a bit, so you don't find really low-level monsters all the time when you get to a huge level, but not scale to the same level as the player all the time.
Dead based off...
I mean, for every monster.
The rarity system of loot, with enemies either being common, fine, exceptional, superb, and legend. Wait for it. Dairy. Legendary! And then the way it works is that if your gear is the same level as an enemy, you'll do normal damage. Whereas if it's higher or lower, you'll do more or less damage. Make sense?
Got the gist.
Which it seems they've done here to constantly encourage the player to keep their gear as upgraded as possible, to try to match whatever you're fighting. But it really wasn't until I was in the last couple of areas where it even felt like my gear could actually match what I was fighting. Despite me spending a whole lot of time making sure I did every single side mission I could find, along with upgrading my items as much as I could. Even by the endgame area where I'd more or less maxed out all of my gear and upgraded it as much as possible, some of the fights still went on and on, as enemies just soaked up all of my attacks like it was nothing. And this was all when I was playing on the normal difficulty, which, as far as I can tell, only seems to affect how much health everything else has. Considering there doesn't seem to be any benefit to playing on hard mode, in the sense that you're not getting better loot or more XP, along with there being no achievement.
You just make the enemies more spongy, like it becomes more boring. I think this is what he wants to say. I don't know, never played the game, but I really will go for the hardest difficulty. Or almost hardest, because this is what I do in all the games. And the second playthrough the hardest for sure. I like them being a bit spongy. Not too spongy so you don't do like 2000 attacks until it dies, but still struggle a bit and die a few times. If you die a few times and the boss is still spongy, I think it's a good thing. Because you cannot get his patterns of attacks that fast. But if you can get his pattern of attacks and you can escape them, but you still attack and attack and attack and he still doesn't die, in 100 attacks I think it's too spongy and too boring. The boss is too boring. It's not creative enough.
For it either, it really just seems like a completely pointless option.
Let's see what you got.
What this system also means is that you can take a unique weapon or piece of armor you find early on in the game and more or less use it for the entire story, as long as you keep upgrading it so it remains effective. And in fact, some armor that I found very early on was what I ended up wearing the entire time, simply because I just never came across anything else that had better stats.
Okay.
Fine.
Honestly, by the end there, I was just
That's a bit boring.
begging for the whole thing to be over. And the last 2 or 3 hours of the story is really just fighting the same 2 or 3 enemy types over and over. Just when it seemed like it was about to end, it would put me in a new area.
It's bad if it overstays its welcome.
Then I'll be off again, given a whole different objective. And the only thing worse than a bad game, I think, is a mid one that just doesn't have the good sense to stop. And look, at the end of the day, I'm sure that some people are going to enjoy this one. And truthfully, it's not the worst game ever.
But I think some people will be happy to get their money was worth, like in how much they play. They will like that it's more hours maybe than less hours. So yeah, some people will like that, I think.
But I did just find it to be so utterly forgettable.
String a thought together.
And if it wasn't on Game Pass, then I doubt really anyone would even play it to begin with. There is nothing Avowed does that you haven't seen done before. And it just feels like the video game equivalent of copying someone else's homework and trying to pass it off as your own. Only for an assignment that was due half.
So which one did they copy the most? Tell me in the comments. Which games do they copy the most?
A decade ago. Overall, it's the same problem I had with Outer Worlds in that it's not a bad experience, but just a painfully average one. And it just doesn't seem like it ever wants to take any risks.
Something to be said for that.
That's bad. Developers should always take some risks to make the games more interesting. Like they used to when the games were cheaper. Understand that they are more expensive right now, but still, they still have to get to the next level always to not remain stagnant, I think.
But if Obsidian
in time
want to keep making games that are actually worth playing and spending your time with, well...
Then I love this combat with this guy. Seems really punchy and cool. With the axe fight.
Then they're gonna start to have to.
Fight. Okay. Good that you die a few times.
One less thing for me to worry about.
I love that in games. That means you cannot get all the patterns of the enemies all the time. So like and subscribe to this guy if you like it. Next.
This is one of the most frustrating reviews.
Let's look at this one too.
Not because I did. This is one of the most
subscribe and like to look.
I've made in a long time. Not because I dislike.
Because he's amazing.
I really like the game, and I think it's pretty good. But rather because it's one of the most broken games I've ever had the displeasure of trying to finish for a review in a long time, maybe ever. To put it in perspective, Avowed, by my estimation, should take you between 30 and maybe 40 hours of gameplay to finish, doing a lot of the side content stuff. I spent significantly longer than that trying to finish this game, by my account, between 12 and 15 hours extra replaying areas that I already finished.
We have a lot to cover today. Yeah, replaying same levels is kind of repetitive and boring.
Or just losing progress because of corrupted saves, or busted...
That's never good, corrupted saves. I know it happened a lot to him.
Quest lines and quest objectives that didn't trigger properly and would soft lock you, or any other number of various issues. I also ran into an issue in later game areas where I could not enter a certain zone without the game just crashing and just breaking. I have not had...
Hopefully they fixed it already in the first day patch.
This much trouble finishing
if this patch came out already, I don't know for sure.
A game due to technical issues in a very long time. And to sweeten the deal even better, as if I wasn't ticked off enough already, I'm not allowed to show you footage of a lot of these broken areas or broken quest lines or objectives because they happen in an area of the map later in the game that is specifically barred from us showing you in the review. They specifically told me I'm not allowed to show you even a screenshot or any footage of that area, meaning I can't show you these.
That means they always have things to hide from the players.
Broken quest lines, bugs, the terrible performance and frame drops and stutters, the fact that NPCs and companions will randomly start moving at 15 frames a second when everybody else is moving at 60 frames a second for some reason. I can't show you any of that because they specifically banned me from showing you that. So if you want to see those clips, I guess go to my second channel, Luke Stevens Live, and on launch day, I'll show you everything. But for this review, I'm not allowed to show it to you.
They tried to make another Cyberpunk 2077 launch situation here, and I don't like that. Hiding stuff from the game, from players. I should really be really transparent with this type of stuff.
So I'm a bit peeved about that,
don't you think?
At the very least. And if you needed the exact quote, what I was told was, quote, "You cannot show any footage beyond what has been provided as B-roll by PR of that area. So there you go. You may also notice that there's limited endgame footage that I can show you. That's also partially because that later game area I can't show you footage of, but also because
I mean, I agree to not be able to tell about the story of the game so you don't spoil for people, but other than that, you should show the gameplay mechanics and bugs and technical parts of the game at all times.
The game is so broken, it has corrupted numerous of my PC save files. And in fact, I'm so confident about this, we're going to do a live demo. You ready? Here we are in the main menu. I'm going to hit enter. Are you ready? Enter. Ready? Here we go. There we go. Okay. And I'm going to hit enter to continue. Watch what happens. Boop. It starts to load in. Okay. There we go. And crash.
That's bad.
I don't know, dude. It's crazy. A lot of my saves are like this. All of a sudden, for some reason, the UE Alabama game has crashed and will close. I don't know what's happening. It's amazing. It's amazing. I have not run into this in a long...
Do you guys have this kind of problem with this game? Or is it just him? Or just a few players?
long time, maybe ever. I think Callisto Protocol I had some bugs and issues with, but...
I'm really interested because I want to play it, and I had like lots of problems like this in Infernal. That's a really old game from the 2000s. And I love the game, but my saves all got corrupted, and because of that, I never finished the game, unfortunately. Now I try to start to play it again, but it looks too ugly to me in the 2020s.
For a big publisher to have a game this busted for me, it's one for the diary, journal, history books. I don't even know. It's fried my brain. It's crazy. But listen, I'm going to go through what I like about the game, because like I said, I think it's pretty good, and I'm going to talk about that in this video. So don't think it's all just like, boo-hoo, the game's broken. But I do want to start with this because this affects everything. When a game has broken quests, has soft locks, has crashes, when it has all these problems, it betrays the trust of the player, and it breaks down this core relationship, which a lot of people take for granted, which is that if you're playing an RPG and you're given a quest objective, the player has to be able to trust that if they get stuck on something, if they can't figure out what to do next, that there is a solution, they just have to figure it out. The moment that trust breaks down, and the thought, oh, the game might be broken. Oh, it might be a busted quest. I might have to reload. Once that happens, you'll start to go crazy, man. You'll start to lose your mind. And it happened all over
you
the
don't
place.
know if you waste more of your time trying to figure out how to fix it, or that you have to reload and lose your progress. So yeah, you lose your mind.
Sometimes because I just was stuck and I needed to think outside the box because the puzzle, or because this platforming area was up there and hidden in the shadows, I didn't see it and I had to climb up there to get the key to do the thing. But other times because the quest actually was broken, because I couldn't actually progress. And when you don't have access like I did to the devs to be able to say, hey, I've been stuck in this spot for like an hour, what's wrong? I was able to talk to them and they went, oh yeah, the game's broken. That quest should have cleared. That door should be unlocked. I don't know why it's not open. Go back, load back an hour, try doing this and having this conversation with this person and see if that clears it. Oh, it fixed it. Okay, problem solved. But you won't have that benefit. You'll just get stuck in the end of that quest line with the door closed, going crazy, wondering what you did wrong when you didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
And with an otherwise solid game, it can destroy and taint and poison the experience to the point where you should just wait. And that's where I'm at. I think Avowed is a pretty good game when it works.
Yeah, you should just wait for more patches to come out, and then maybe you can play it the way it was supposed to be played.
But it doesn't work right now, at least for me. And as a result, I cannot recommend it to you. At least not until they've patched it and fixed a lot of this stuff up. There's some bugs and issues in the game that they have said they are aware of and were aware of before we started reviewing the game about 2 weeks out from its launch. One such issue was one where bounties, which are like high level combat encounters, you go, you kill the target, you collect a trophy off of their body, and you bring it back almost like a severed head to gain the payout for completing the bounty. There's an issue in the game right now as I'm speaking where those bodies will despawn like 20% of the time within a few seconds. So if you kill the big baddie and then you go to kill some of the grunts and the rest of the combat encounter, his body will despawn, meaning you can't collect the bounty and you can't complete the bounty quest.
Yeah, that's bad because you cannot complete the quests, and it's bad that it disappears that fast because you might get distracted and you cannot complete the quests. I know it's for resources, is for the game to consume less resources from the computer and consoles, but still, they should not disappear that fast, I think.
That's a problem. That's a problem. But apparently they're aware of it, and a fix is coming in the future. I don't know if that's day one. I don't know if that's day zero with the early access. I have no idea. So I know they're working on some fixes for some of these issues, but others, such as the most egregious soft lock that I ran into, which lost me around 4 to 5 hours of progress and gameplay time, that one, they had no idea about before the review period started. And so I'm very confident that won't be fixed before launch. And that's one that involves a pretty significant spoiler because it happens right as to be vague, something very significant happens that alters everything. And so I can't be that specific with it. Otherwise, I'll spoil it for you when it's a really cool moment, when it works. So again, I'm just stuck between a rock and a hard place. I can spoil the game for you, which I think you'll enjoy when it works, and show you how broken it is, or I can not show you, but tell you about it and encourage you to not play the game right now. But for what it's worth, all I can say is that I think Avowed is pretty good. It's just busted, and it's busted.
Yeah, if they patch it a lot more, maybe wait for 2, 3, 4 patches and then start playing it. I always do this. I never get the games when they release. Wait for another year maybe. And also because I don't have time to play them, and I have my space full on my PC of them. But that's another story.
Stick to the point where I'm kind
Life happens for me a lot.
of frustrated that I played the game when I did. It's really, really broken, not just in terms of performance, or it doesn't run very well on PC or even on Xbox Series X. So just to reiterate, it's not just the broken quest lines or the crashes on PC. The quest lines also break on Xbox Series X and S, which I also tested the game on. I also ran into some corrupted saves on Xbox. Though interestingly, sometimes when a save can't be loaded on PC, whether it's my high-end gaming PC or my gaming laptop, they both can't load it, but it can load on Xbox Series X through the Xbox Cloud save system, which is weird. So there's something about that save file that doesn't work on PC but works on the Xbox version. I have no idea. It's way above my pay grade.
That's weird.
There's all sorts of weird things like that with this game that just frankly shouldn't be. And I am a little bedeviled by it because I play a lot of games and I have not had this much trouble getting to the credits in a game in a long time. Not because it was like difficult or anything. The game can be challenging if you want it to be, but because it was just busted and broken, and I kept running into broken quest lines and crashes and save file corruptions that required me to load back an hour or two. It's really frustrating. But all of that said, I'm enough whining. I want to talk about the game now for what it is. So from this point on, let's say that the game is magically fixed and everything's great and wonderful and you can play it and enjoy it and not run into any of those problems. What's the game like then? Well, first things first, it's important to understand what Avowed is trying to be. It is a classic Obsidian RPG. That means it's a little bit tighter in scope and budget. Think of their old school fan favorite game, Fallout New Vegas. It's a tighter in scope Fallout game, but that tighter scope allows them to go deeper with the writing, with the consequence, with what the player is able to.
Yeah, that's great. If it's tighter but better. Quality over quantity.
To do with their agency. It's really, really cool, and people connect with it a lot because while it is janky, it's much more free when it comes to player choice. And that certainly is true in Avowed. I remember making a choice in a quest line roughly 5 hours into the game that I thought would probably get disregarded or forgotten about. But much to my surprise, at the very end of the game, when they're doing the slideshow showing where everybody ended up based on your choices, I actually saw a choice I had made come back very importantly to how the ending played out, which was really cool. And this is true all over.
That's great, but you should show a cinematic, not a like slideshow, I think, of images. That's what I understand they show. They should show a cinematic, how you change the world and stuff like that, based on the decisions you took.
Over the place. Certain dialogue choices, decisions you'll make at one point, or which area you clear out, whether you clear out this cave before this thing happens, can have significant
That could be more interesting.
impact on how everything kind of plays out. And I love that stuff. I think it's so cool. And that's why I think a lot of RPG fans will enjoy Avowed. Again, when it works, but I'll stop. Furthermore, I was really pleasantly surprised with how easy it was to get lost exploring in this game. There's multiple levels and areas, some that I can't show you in much detail, as I alluded to earlier.
Yeah, it looks wonderful.
But I was pleased with how many treats and treasures were crammed in every nook and cranny in these areas. Seriously, you'll be surprised at how often you turn a corner and then you see a little pathway leading up the side of a hill or up the side of a cliff. You climb your way up, you find a big spot you can jump across to a ledge, and then you find a cool weapon that you didn't even anticipate being there. That type of thing happens all the time in Avowed, and it's awesome. Your 4 companions also have their own companion quest lines, and while they're too short for my liking, I think they rush through a lot of their stories, and that's true of a lot of quest lines. I feel like they rush through a lot of them. I did really enjoy seeing all of their backgrounds and how all of it played out. They were written pretty well, and I thought it was very, very solid. But
yeah, that's great. I thought only Kai was more interesting, and those other ones were boring from other reviewers, from Jake Baldino, I think, GameRanks. That's great if they're good. Their storylines are great.
Sense of rushing also applies to other systems.
What do you think? Did you play this game, and do you think their storylines are great, or only Kai is more interesting? Without spoiling it, please.
Feel underutilized. They have a camp where you're supposed to go and rest up and speak with your companions, customize your gear, upgrade it, customize your
kind of like
class benefits and perks. There's all sorts of cool stuff that you can do here, but it often feels really underutilized. You actually load into this area separately from the open world while they set up camp, and after a couple of conversations and maybe swapping some
But that's Baldur's Gate 2. Baldur's Gate 3 does that too. I mean, you connect to a different area when you go to the camp.
In and out of your inventory, you're done, and then you just load out elsewhere. I would have liked to see some cooler meta gameplay mechanic that plays into this, whether it be something like Baldur's Gate 3 and D&D with their rest mechanic, refilling magical essence, or maybe an exhaustion meter or something.
Or maybe I didn't understand exactly what he wanted to say.
Like that, or even just bigger buffs and things that would benefit the party every time you go back to camp to have conversations with each other. Instead, right now, it just feels like a system that they put in because they felt like they needed a camp for people to congregate in for like NPC conversations and stuff, but it just doesn't feel really utilized to the fullest extent of what it could have been. On the other hand, there's other systems which I think are a little bit too big for their own good, specifically the inventory. I know some people love inventory management in games like this. They love sifting through hundreds of items and seeing what they've got, breaking things down for new crafting materials that they then use to upgrade other weapons or armor pieces or to craft something to sell to a vendor. I get it. I know some people love this stuff, but it drives me crazy. This is just a matter of personal preference, but when I'm playing a narrative RPG, I like focusing on that. I
don't focus on this too much in games, but I'm still doing it from time to time.
Like role-playing as a garbage collector, or at the very least, I appreciate it if you give me the option to not have to roleplay as a garbage collector. Again, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 did this really well, where if you wanted to just go collect all of the armor off of everybody's bodies and then sell that to somebody else, you could do that. Or if you wanted to play just as an herbalist, you could do that. If you wanted to go and play through with just a really simple mercenary perspective where you have your armor and your weapons and everything, but for the most part, you're just going, you kill people, you take their money and their food and maybe some valuable trinkets off their bodies, and then you sell those. I just want the agency to make that choice so I don't have to play as Oscar the Grouch in a dumpster if I don't have to. Especially because...
Yeah, me too, I like this.
Because in Avowed, the
I like what he says.
UI can be a lot, and it's just not particularly intuitive. It's not really fun to manage. It's just a lot of busy work. And while inventory management was never forced upon me too much because inventory carry weight was always very generous, I still found myself rolling my eyes.
That's great because I don't like the carry weight mechanic in any game. In Skyrim, like I use the console to make it a lot more, to increase the limit by a lot more. I don't like going slow because of it.
Time I had to open my inventory and look for something, which in my opinion is never a good sign. The other thing I want to mention is the announcement trailer for Avowed. I thought that this was really, really cool when they first showed it years ago because it set the tone for this really dark and gritty fantasy game. A lot of people were like, oh, is this like Obsidian's Elder Scrolls game?
I don't know how they could do the overweight, like carry weight mechanic better when you go over the limit of what you can carry, but I think it should be increased by a lot for each level. Not worry about it too much, only if you get way too many things. And I like how they did it in Kingdom Come Deliverance again, like you can move some of these items to the horse if you have a horse. So yeah,
it's going to be the Fallout New Vegas to Elder Scrolls, you know, that's basically what they're going to try to do. And I was really excited when I saw this trailer, but what we got instead was
how they should do it is really make weapons and armor more rare and more unique, and increase the weight limit by a lot so you don't reach it many times. So yeah, and when you almost come close to it, to going over the normal weight, over the normal carry weight, you should know from a mile away, so you go to the stores first.
It's like if you
before any main mission
went into a Mario level and took a bunch of LSD, because it's nothing but colorful shrooms and pinks and greens. I just...
Here I disagree. I like the colorful palette of the game right now, rather than this dark game. This kind of dark games kind of depress me. I don't know why. And I want games to be happy, kind of happy, not all the way happy.
To really dislike the art direction in the current version of...
Like for example, God of War, the second one, which I'm playing right now. I love it by a lot, but the palette is too gray, too dark. I think those games from the 2000s are too dark, or GTA 3. It's kind of small. It's not a big turnoff, but it's a small turnoff for me. I'm still playing the game, but I don't like it as much. For example, as GTA Vice City, which is more colorful, or the later GTA games.
The game. I love this vibe. I wanted this game, but instead what we got was like Strawberry Shortcake smokes something with Donkey Kong while over at Princess Peach's house in the Mushroom Kingdom when Mario shows up.
Well, I don't like the mushroom monsters that much, but they should keep the same color palette and make scary monsters too, like combine the vibes. I think that's the best way to do it, and also to reach the biggest audiences.
Start screaming at them. I don't understand why they pivoted so hard, because I loved this original vibe, But it is what it is. I mean, it's whatever. I hope you like mushrooms. There's a lot of them. Speaking of mushrooms, you will play as somebody who has been God touched. And to put it simply, this is pretty core to the game's narrative, so I won't go into too much detail, but you do have the option of turning this on or off. But NPCs will act as if you have it, even if it's not visible to the player. I understand they wanted to have some visual representation of having been touched by a god that is central to the plot of the game. But it just, I mean, the whole time I looked at it and was hearing people talk about it, it just made me think that I looked like a clicker from The Last of Us. And it's really hard to think like you're blessed when you look like a clicker from The Last of Us. I'm sorry. And I know I can turn this off, but all the...
Yeah, I don't think about this, but he looks a bit like a clicker from The Last of Us. I think the way they did it is too much. They should have done less enhancing. There's mushrooms on the face, so you can still see the face clearly. But yeah, it is what it is.
The NPCs still mention it and still talk about it, so I left it turned on. Again, with the art direction and the visuals of this game, I don't know what they're doing, but
I kind of like it because it's more unique than other games.
It's like they're trying to make so much of this game look as unappealing as possible, and it's weird. It's just weird. But who knows? Maybe some other people really love the mushroom vibe of the game. I don't know. What I do know is that I had fun while playing Avowed. I think the combat is actually much more robust than I was anticipating.
I agree.
And with the varied styles available to the player, whether you're looking to swing a sword or a great hammer or use magic and fire rifles and pistols, there's many options for the player to choose from. I will say the game is very dependent.
They should have done smaller mushrooms on the face and everything is smaller. But yeah, I think it's kind of unique after all, in conclusion.
On gear, and they reiterate that many times through the automatic tutorials and like recommended tips that pop up on screen constantly. For the first 10 hours, they'll constantly be reminding you to go back to your camp and upgrade your gear, even though, in my opinion, you probably don't really...
But I know some people that like character customization and they like to see their characters each time. They won't like this. I don't think it's for everybody.
You need to do that on normal difficulty because you're going to get so much better.
Do you like it or not?
Gear as you play through the game. You know, it's kind of like, this is a deep cut. It's kind of like when you play Monster Hunter. Think of Monster Hunter World. You get all the armor spheres and stuff to upgrade your armor, but until you get to master rank missions and monsters, you just don't need to do that. Like, it's a waste of the armor spheres because you're just going to get better armor that you craft in 10 minutes anyway. So don't bother upgrading the low gear stuff. Wait until you have the good stuff and then upgrade that. That's basically what's going on here. I just don't know why they have this entire like gameplay loop tied around upgrading armor when you just get better armor by looking over there or by completing this bounty quest and taking it off the guy. Like, I never found myself, for better or worse, wishing that I had upgraded my armor because I always had good enough armor to get through encounters. Speaking of encounters, combat-wise, it's...
Yeah, that makes upgrading less important. So, yeah, it's not that cool.
Typically just about fighting hordes of enemies. They'll do occasional boss fights, which are actually pretty fun, especially early in the game. There's some pretty varied encounters. But as the game drags on, you'll start to notice that there's less enemy variety than you might have expected. And often, the combat system is much more about...
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. Hopefully mods can fix this.
Crowd control and using different abilities from your companions.
And maybe new DLCs.
To synergize with yours so that you can take out groups of enemies at once before taking on the big guy. I was also kind of frustrated that towards the end of the game, they do introduce something cool, which is a sort of wizardy class character in some of these horde fights, which will heal the big boss guy. So you might have 5 grunts, 1 magic healer that heals the 1 big brute, which is a pretty simple archetype to have for a combat encounter, but they just kept reusing it over and over and over again. And
that's too repetitive.
It didn't feel that challenging or cool or complex because you just run up and kill the guy healing everybody and then it's just a regular combat encounter. It was kind of frustrating because I was like, oh, maybe they're going to have...
It makes the combat encounters go the same way each time, so that makes it boring.
Different magic that can buff people in different ways, or maybe it causes the big guy to go invisible, or maybe it gives him the ability to have enhanced attacks or whatever, but instead it was always really, really simple. Just heal him, and then when he's dead, everything's fine, and you just move on. And I even accidentally figured out while trying to fix one of the soft blocks I ran into, and I was just trying a bunch of different stuff to see if I could make something happen to progress. I was pleasantly surprised that there's choices you can make that are very, very specific, where you might think like, hey, I saw this character over here earlier. Maybe I go there and I just try to like talk to them or kill them or something, and I wonder if they show up later and do this really bad thing. And you have the option of affecting the game based on that. And I love that kind of thing in RPGs. When you think, I wonder if I could, and the game says yes to you. I love that kind of thing, especially narratively. And Avowed says yes a lot more than it says no. But again, all of this just takes me back.
But it says no sometimes, so that's not cool.
To what I said at the beginning of the
especially when you want to be evil.
Video, which is there's a trust between player and game that is so core to the player experience. And with Avowed, the core problem is that it's hard to tell when the game is saying yes or no, because sometimes it's not saying either. It's just broken and passed out on the floor, but you don't know that. And so you're like playing coy. You won't tell me yes or no. I've got to keep figuring it out myself. When in reality,
it's funny, but when you not play it, when you don't play it, it's funny. When you play it and this happens, it's not that funny. You have to reload.
It's on the way to the hospital in an ambulance. And that's the real problem, is that I think that you can really enjoy
Unofficial patches, please. Mods.
Avowed. There's a lot to like here, and it's clunky and it's janky, but that's why it's perfect.
If the official ones don't come out.
Perfect for Game Pass. But this is like the one kind of game in this state that breaks the Game Pass promise, which is that it is accessible, and people who are interested in it and curious about it, they can jump into it. And I think when the game is functional, they will enjoy it. But with it being broken and having broken quest lines and broken consequence and choices and all this, it's going to lead to situations where players will play the game and they would have otherwise liked it, but they will not like it because they get stuck, because something breaks. And it's a real bummer, because if they had been given the opportunity to see the game for what it is when it's working, they would have otherwise really...
Yeah, if it breaks only here and there, like once or twice, it's okay. But if it breaks many times, it gets you out of the immersiveness of it. Maybe. That's what I think. So I don't want to play it anymore.
You really enjoyed it. And that's why I just
crashes too.
Beg you to just wait until they fix it and patch it, and then I think you'll actually enjoy it.
They punch you out of the
right
game.
Now, when I'm filming this video, it's
Atmosphere.
still busted. I can't actually continue working on some of the end game stuff I was doing in side quests because all of those save files are corrupted, and the only save I can get working is one that's about 10 hours before the finale, which means, again, to do those like end game side quests with that stuff I had, all the equipment and gear I had collected, I have to replay 10 hours of the game, and that is infuriating. Okay, everybody, I'm here chilling in the studio with my Todd Howard cutout and all my
I like his review. It's pretty well done.
Warhammer stuff, but I wanted to give you a little update on everything because I
With the pros and cons. Pretty deep too.
just received a list of all of the bug fixes that are expected to come to the game with the Day Zero patch as part of the early access of the game. And I looked through that list of all the fixes that they're bringing, and on that list, there's only a couple things that possibly could affect what I've described in my review here. Things like general performance improvements, and specifically performance improvements on the copy of the game through Xbox Game Pass. It seems like the Game Pass version of the game has some issues that are not present elsewhere, which is whatever. But all of the quest-breaking bugs, all of the major issues I've run into, the crashes, the corrupted save files, they are not listed in the known bugs and fixes coming.
That's too bad. Hopefully at least unofficial patches on PC.
With this Day Zero patch, so it is what it is. I'm going to leave the review as it is. Hopefully those things are kind of accidentally fixed, and maybe, you know, if you try to play the game yourself, it ends up working amazingly well. But based on what I'm seeing in the list of fixes, none of that stuff is being addressed, at least not yet. So I'm going to leave the review as is. I really hope that other people had a great time with it and were able to play through it without these issues.
Hopefully.
But I don't know. Maybe I'm just a bug magnet. It's really amazing how many different issues I ran into. But I guess time will tell. I'll be interested in seeing what other reviewers say about it as well. I think maybe some people don't fully appreciate all the hoops that we jump through trying to fix the game before mentioning something in a review like this. I worked with the devs trying to fix it. I rolled back drivers. I tried the game on a separate PC than this, tried on my gaming laptop. I tried the game many different ways. We tried many things to fix these.
That's crazy that they still have bugs. The same type of bugs on a different PC.
Problems, and none of it worked. So it just is what it is. But I guess time will tell what the broader public thinks of it and what other reviewers think of it. But it's a real bummer because I think the game was pretty solid otherwise. It's just not something you can recommend in the state that it's in. So little update for you. They have fixed some stuff, but not enough stuff. And the stuff that really bothered me and was broken is still there. So nothing's really changed. So that's my update. Nothing's different. There you go.
Yeah,
that what you want.
that's a great update.
So that's where I'm at. Hopefully other reviewers had more luck, and hopefully they enjoyed it a lot more than I did. I just think it's a solid game, but my time with it was so freaking broken. I cannot in good conscience recommend it. And hearing them ban and bar footage from the later game area that had a lot of the
That's never good.
problems, that frustrates me, to say the very least. So hopefully they release this and allow us to show you footage of all of that stuff. But if not, on launch day, I will show you all of it over on Luke Stevens Live on stream. So I guess head over there and subscribe to get notified when that happens, because there's a lot of it. What I will say is if you are hell-bent on playing the game, play through it on Xbox. I think on Xbox, you still have broken quest lines, you still have some of those core problems, but the performance seems a lot better on Windows. Just PC, it runs really heavy. Even with ray tracing turned off, even with all that stuff and DLSS turned on, it just doesn't run very well, especially that later game area. I'm not allowed to show you footage of.
It really needs patches.
If you're going to play it on Xbox, and the save file corruption issue is going to be much lesser, and you'll have
And archive your save files often with WinRAR. Maybe put them on Google Drive or any cloud service to kind of not have this problem that often, at least.
a better time with it. But
that's my tips.
I'm telling you, on PC and just in general, the game's busted. Wait. Just weight.
Or
But
just
speaking
wait.
of weight, after
Yeah.
making this video, I feel a weight lifted off my shoulders because now I can go and play a game that works. So I'm gonna go do
Skyrim.
that.
Everybody goes back to Skyrim after all those. After Veilguard, Avowed. Yeah. Modded Skyrim, best game ever on PC.
Okay, I'm gonna go play a game that works and is fun. So I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. I love you all desperately. Thanks for making my dreams a reality every
That was really harsh at the end.
single day. Never ever think I take it for
Like and
granted.
subscribe to him if you like him.
Truly owe all of this to you guys who watch.
Let's see this one too, really quick.
Buddy, it is Maddie here today.
Like and
We're
subscribe
sitting
to
down
him too,
talk about
if you like him.
Avowed. This game is way bigger than I expected. I put over 40 hours into the base game, finishing it, as well as a lot of the side content, but there was still more for me to do. Quite frankly, I feel like you could put upwards of 55 hours into this game to see everything, which makes it one of Obsidian's biggest games ever. They're known for the more tighter 30-hour replayable experience here, but Avowed is, in a lot of ways, very different. In some ways, I expected, but in others, I did not, as I'll depict in this video. Now, to be very honest, if you sat me down toward the midpoint of last year and said, hey, Maddie, within the next 6 months, you're going to get a product from BioWare, Bethesda, and Obsidian, some of your favorite developers of all time, and you're going to walk out kind of mixed on all of them, what a laugh in your face.
Let's go faster because we have a lot to cover today.
Would have been like, surely one of my goats will fully
Time is running
deliver.
out.
I know for a lot of people, Obsidian has always been this kind of middling developer that's always delivering the almost there.
I want to
experience.
get out
For me,
too.
they have been always one of the best
Sunny
ever
day.
RPG developers. I just did a top 30 RPGs video over on Retro Rebound, and Obsidian took the #1 spot with KOTOR 2. They've not only made my favorite role-playing game of all time, but many of them. Fallout New Vegas. And it's not just, oh, they are a product
Yeah.
of their past.
Legendary
Recent
games.
releases like the Outer Worlds crack that list as well. Obsidian is gold. And when I watch them shift their focus to different styles of games, like Pentiment or Grounded, they
Or was because they changed their teams a lot since then too.
happily shut people like me up who were starting to doubt a little bit, like, can they really go from these hardcore RPGs to something else, and delivered with high quality in those areas as well. So I thought it would be par for the course. I'm going to get a great suite of characters, a world I love, great reactive choices, maybe some more fun gameplay. I'm going to walk in here and tell you all how awesome it was. What I'll say is this, just so it's very crystal clear for those who are going to take my words and run away and say something else. Avowed is a good game. Avowed is just a good game, though. But I don't look at Obsidian for a good game. I think they can deliver some of the best games ever, for me at least. Some great games at the bare minimum. I don't look at them as the company that delivers to me. It was all right. I don't walk out of any Obsidian experience saying that. It was all right. I've loved almost everything this developer has put in front of me. So that means that some of my language in this review will sound stronger than I think other reviewers out there. So just so you're aware of my taste in general, not like it really matters in today's internet, but at least for those of you who care to know that, you know. So I want to lay out the rest for you here and now, because Avowed did have a troubled development cycle. This originally started as a multiplayer game before Obsidian themselves admitted it was against their core DNA as a studio, and they pivoted into a single-player RPG direction. Now, at first, when I finished Avowed,
I think this is where it went a bit wrong when they tried to do this as a multiplayer game.
I thought it came out mostly unscathed compared to the recent push of multiplayer games turned single-player RPGs, say like a Dragon Age the Veilguard. However, the more I thought about it, the more certain design choices just didn't add up with who Obsidian is, or more importantly, what Avowed clearly wants to be. Avowed wants to be highly reactive, you know, just like any other prior Obsidian RPG you play. You do a thing and the world responds to it.
Yeah.
However, its character-based reactivity is nonsensical at times. Like, seriously, this is the first RPG I played where I chose to burn down the house of one of my party members, and before the final fight, they said they'd have my back no matter what. The individual was displeased with my decision, sure, but immediately hand-waved it away in the name of the greater good, I guess, even though it obviously wasn't, especially for them. So that happened all game, and they would just not react to what was obviously relationship-destroying material. Now,
That's bad. Yeah. They should have reacted in a bad way
for comparison,
towards the player.
in the Outer Worlds, and again, I need to highlight
So
that
you really feel like an evil player.
I'm pulling a lot of these examples for this review out of the Outer Worlds, specifically because this is not one of those arbitrary comparison videos where it's like, look what we got in 2004 with KOTOR 2. Why can't they do this nowadays? Games have changed so dramatically. I'm looking at a game that's, what, like half a decade away from its release? Like, it's relatively new, all things considered. So when I look at the Outer Worlds and I see that you can straight up tell Parvati in the beginning of that game to go away, and you can just not pick her up there. Or if you take away Edgewater's power without her, she won't join your party. Or you kill Reed, she won't join your party. Or if you shoot her love interest, she won't join your party. However, if she's with you, she's going to plead her case on why Reed may be correct and why you should divert the power to Edgewater. All of this makes sense because this is her home, this is what she knows, and she's now seeing you for who truly you are in those areas and will react accordingly. The game
That's
also
great.
allowed skill checks that can give you the opportunity to convince these
It's amazing how these whole games were so much better. I think nowadays they try to keep like a threshold for how well the games are, how well made they are, because they cannot go over limit because they go with the spendings over their budget. So they don't have the same value because they don't have the same team anymore, and they spend in the wrong places, and yeah, the game goes really good in the wrong places. They spend too much in the wrong places, and they spend too little where they should, like they did before, because the new teams, they don't know what to do exactly like the old ones. So yeah, this is what happens, and they try to not spend over their budget because they cannot increase the game price that easily. So Yeah.
party members who are displeased with you to stay despite giving your character some freedom. Although in some instances, what you'll do is unforgivable. These exit states form the moral boundaries of the characters that you bond with across the course of a game and make their personalities feel real. But Avowed consistently made excuses for me when I attempted to do my Renegade playthrough, and we'll talk more on how evil you can be later in the video, but oftentimes it felt like the game wanted to be more reactive, but a lot of its reactions were hosted within just the text, but the actual character actions and the world itself will remain unchanged. And that felt like previous shackles.
It feels a bit like a multiplayer game out of the box
From an older idea
when it does this.
in a multiplayer game. The other aspect went down to Avowed's focus on gameplay. If this were a multiplayer game still, everything from the focus on loot to the way zone scale would make sense, but Avowed feels very scared to put too much power in my hands, which is odd for a single-player RPG.
Yeah.
The zone difficulty is defined by a tier system, of which there are 5, and there's also tiers within tiers I'll talk about in a second, but despite doing almost all of the side content I could find, much of my experience was spent being a tier behind on loot. So, for example, if I'm entering Zone 4...
I like how his character looks.
With fully upgraded Tier 3 gear that you might get by the end of the prior zone in Zone 3, it's instantly outdated upon your first encounter with Zone 4. So you're probably thinking like, okay, no sweat, just go out there and get what you need. Right, so, except there are 3 tiers within each tier, and much of the side content is usually tucked within the higher level stuff. So like if you have Tier 3, then 3.3, if you will. It's a little confusing to explain in words, but the idea is basically that the highest level stuff will hold the gear you need, but you'll always be too weak to go out and get that until you grind, get ahead, and then return to the previous zone where now the gear is not really as valuable to you as it once was. Now, to be fair, this gear grind does bring me back to that feeling of the old Bethesda Game Studios games where you complete quests and get unique items or loot in a dungeon that was unique as well. It scratches that itch that Starfield left behind, and they're all visually distinct, which I thought was really cool. But that said, the focus entirely on its scaling and combat doesn't feel in line with the values at Obsidian, and given how repetitive the combat became for me, as I'll depict later, it's not just a conflict with my taste, but also I think the quality of the game itself. The gameplay-focused experience and the lack of reactivity really coalesces in its world where it's almost completely static. You can
That's what I don't like. That's the biggest turn off for me for this game. What's your biggest one?
See, even in the footage right now, NPCs in towns don't roam at all. I mean, just take a look for yourself. Every single town has people standing completely still, like
they're
originally
static.
planned to be hubs for your party online.
They stay in the same
running
place.
around here, so everyone else would have to be static. This would carry into the actual open world biomes of Avowed, where again, everyone feels very much
But the open world looks amazing, though. Looks crazy. Crazy good.
equal to the ground. Now, even removing myself from these assumptions, even if I'm dead wrong about why I think these
Maybe some mods can give those NPCs some AI schedules. They can really work on the artificial intelligence part of them.
things are happening, the reality is they are happening. Avowed's world does feel lifeless. Enemies are on the road waiting for me to just cross them. And despite the drastic measures I go to in my mission as the Aeterna envoy, no one really approaches me, like say, if you want to pull a Skyrim example out, like a courier, and says like, hey, we heard what you did. We're interested in that. Like,
It was funny when the dragon came behind him.
out in those open zones, like they'll be marked with an exclamation point, you'll run up to them. And I'm less picky about that, but you'll just see a lot of remnants of an MMO-like experience. Like if you play, let's go to a BioWare style game, if you play like Star Wars The Old Republic and you're running around that world, you'll see everyone is planted in a specific spot waiting for you to come to them. So again, this is where I started to see the remnants of an older multiplayer game. And while there are like idle animation cycles happening in these towns, as you see through that illusion, it does feel very stiff and in not a good way. In this sense, Avowed feels comparable to a moment similar to Bethesda with Starfield, which I know for many this will have a stronger negative connotation than I intended, but remember, I really like base game Starfield. However, Starfield is also a Bethesda game that I can almost guarantee I'll never go back and replay, unlike every single one of their other games. So Avowed is, as I said at the top of all of this, good enough, and I'll get into that, but I also expect more than good enough from one of my favorite developers ever.
Yeah.
The view for this game has shifted to
We expect the very best from this developer.
something else in an attempt to be more broadly
From
appealing, and I
Obsidian.
feel it may leave some diehards like me going, yeah, that was all right, but not leaving with the same enthusiasm that an Obsidian game usually churns for people like me. Now, that's mostly because I walked out of the experience unmoved by its characters. I mean, never in a million years did I think I would play even the worst of Obsidian games, where I do all the companion quests, exhaust all the dialogue options, and still walk away after 40 hours being able to say, hey, Kai is all right as a character, I guess. Maybe it's because of Garrus's voice actor, but the rest really weren't interesting at all. I don't want to speak for everybody, but when it comes to Obsidian Entertainment, for me at least,
I love how his character looks so knightly, if that makes sense.
they have made many of my favorite characters ever. Kreia,
Fits the medieval times. Fits the setting really good.
Aeterna, Visas Mar, Parvati, Vicar Max, pretty much everyone in Fallout New Vegas. I mean, they made a hilarious South Park
Yeah, it doesn't have the same writers anymore.
video game. They are storied character writers. So for me to walk out of an experience and be like, I didn't like Marius at all. Yatzli is funny, I guess, but like felt very little in depth. Giada feels very unexplored. That wraps up about like a third into the game, and he kind of is just left hanging. So when I look at a developer who's known for these incredible character arcs, and this is kind of what
That's
I get
bad.
on the other side, it leaves me feeling a little
Plot holes are bad too. I don't like them in series and I don't like them in games.
shortchanged. I look at KOTOR 2, my favorite RPG ever.
Or story holes or whatever you want to call them.
And I'm not just saying that because I'm
Character backgrounds.
trying to upsell you on the gameplay, but it's because of its influence system, the perfectly written companions, the way they challenge me as a player, my beliefs and my choices. The Outer Worlds is a game that, in both my original review and re-review, I stated how the gameplay is pretty simple, and hell, even the AI was questionable at times with how it behaved in combat, but that was okay when the gameplay was entertaining enough with its modern Fallout-like framework and a world that gave me characters like Ellie, Vicar Max, Parvati, plus an interesting theme that drove home a message by the end of my experience that felt very strong, albeit a bit comedic too. So Avowed tries to live in the middle of all this, and for that, it comes up short with everything, and in turn, after a very long setup, I'm a bit disappointed. That pretty much tells you everything you need to know about me and my experience with the game, but I'm going to go more in depth now. I want to start with the gameplay because this kind of, I think, just solidifies where the focus of Avowed is. There is a story here, don't get me wrong, but there was never a point I was like itching to rush along in that story or get to
I love how you go and explore and find these things, hidden things.
know the next step in the character's journey. There wasn't that level of charm and draw to the story, quite like the gameplay, which is again where most of this title is focused. So that, unlike any other Obsidian review I've done before, we're going to start with the gameplay. So if I'm going to draw a comparable to Avowed, I think Fantasy Outer Worlds is still a great descriptor like it was pre-launch. You have these large biomes, each about the size of Monarch if we're using the Outer Worlds as a scale, most times much bigger, and you'll be able to wander about questing and killing. And I will just say, I love the wandering experience in this game. I mean, Obsidian is kind of doing what they did with Fallout 76, where when Bethesda came out with this game against the DNA of Bethesda Game Studios and Obsidian delivered the Outer Worlds, it was a great feeling of like, that's what I want. So similar thing here where we had Starfield not deliver this wandering experience we were looking for, and it was procedurally generated, where Avowed does have a world that I just kind of like to jog around in and go from place to place and let my eyes wander and just go to different spots, explore caves, get cool loot. Like that part of the process is good, although it does have a little bit of that MMO zone-like design in that maybe you'll wander into a cave and you'll realize like, I shouldn't be here now. This is a quest line. I need to come back later when I have the right quest. So you'll have that from time to time, but I think that's kind of an unfair complaint. It's just something worth mentioning because even something like Skyrim has that. But I do wish the game adjusted for those sorts of things, so I could maybe go off on my own, find these things, and then start a quest midway through just based on how I decided to approach the world. Beyond the wandering, you're going to fight a lot in Avowed, and it's probably the best part of the package, at least at the start. I swapped out my build 3 times before landing on a 2-handed Templar. Massive fireballs out of his hands and the occasional healing spell. But before that, I was a ranger crawling around with an arquebus, and I was really looking at building up crit damage. And then before that, I was using the classic sword and board. And you can have 2 loadouts and really switch between like your 2-handed sword and then say like a wand and a grimoire. Like there's a lot of crazy combos for Avowed. And unlike previous Obsidian games where you're going to share these water cooler moments about the story, it's really going to be about your build and how you approach the combat scenarios. But what I was a little bit disappointed by was the level design. When they were kind of pitching this idea pre-launch of like your world, your way, and there was like a stealth takedown and everything in Avowed, I thought like, oh, there's going to be a lot of different playstyles. But everything ends up being balls to the wall action. It's just when things pop.
Really good. Just commenting on Avowed right now. See how good it is, to see if I play it later or not.
One of the 3 different kind of subclasses you're going to filter yourself into. So there's the fighter, the wizard, and the ranger. You also have godlike abilities that unlock throughout a different tree depending on how you make certain choices at certain points in the game, which I did like. But I think it's very easy to settle into a groove, even if this starts to become a mini Skyrim-like experience, because I found Barbaric Shout, and that's when the game kind of ended for me on the gameplay front. This thing taunts enemies, gives me an insane amount of shield on top of my current health bar, and allows me to deal insane damage to the stun meter. And when the stun meter is maxed out, you'll do this finisher move and likely move on to your next enemy. So combat quickly dropped from engaging and fast-paced to running in, using my Barbaric Shout, and wiping out everyone in new record fashion and then moving on. So when the repetition set in, I'd start to tinker my build a little bit, but I feel it's on the game to introduce the new challenges that
it's a bit repetitive, the combat, but I think all the games are more or less
evolve rather than deliberately progressing my character in order to avoid boredom in a game that was much bigger than I expected. Now, frequently the AI would break just in the middle of combat, but most encounters are comprised of an enemy that'll spawn.
Did you play Avowed?
And a tank, and sometimes an enemy with a shield that you'll have to power attack to break through. So for a game so deeply focused on combat, I was hoping for more enemy types that would try and force me to play differently, even swap weapons, but no can do on that.
You should watch the trailer of Ghost of Yotei. I saw that. It's kind of old by now. I want to play Ghost of Tsushima because it came to PC, but I don't know when Ghost of Yotei will come to PC.
This again, it's not like a bad combat system, but once I found that trick, and I found it really early, that's the tough part about RPGs, right? Is you find this part of the build early and you just hold on to it for dear life. So some people will naturally complain about me and how I play the game, like, well, you ruined it for yourself, bro. But it's like, the game let me get this move. It's like a level, I think, 5 ability. Like, it's really early, and it just changes the whole dynamic of the game. In fact, I would have had it earlier in the game if I was actually building toward this Templar build much earlier.
I want to play Kingdom Come Deliverance too, because it's really good, but I don't have space on my PC again.
Then I actually ended up gradually discovering it later on in the game. One of the big questions about performance, there is a performance mode, so you can play this at 60 frames per second, which is what I did for most of the playthrough. I did switch to quality mode to try things out. I think I kind of preferred it on quality mode just because I really liked how the environments looked, the lighting looked, like it really shined well. But
you mean the first one?
Were, in my opinion, distractingly ugly during conversations when you were playing.
Yeah, I think I love it.
This is mostly due to how shadows worked on the characters. They'd be heavily pixelated.
I know if I like it more than Assassin's Creed, the older ones, but We'll see.
Those times in that performance mode. But the other thing I noticed was a performance mode bug where when certain characters were speaking, I don't know what really triggered this bug, but the frame count for that talking character in that scene would be completely different from the world behind them. And
that's weird to have different frames on the characters, on the NPCs than the rest of the game. It sticks out a lot.
Even the other characters speaking, where oftentimes it would just be like they're in a slideshow.
Playing at the moment a little slow in the start. Why now? Are you playing on PC? Or on the console? As on the consoles it went out many years ago.
Their own, and then you go back to another character talking and they'd be fine. You go back to this character and they're still in that slideshow, it'd be really weird. But otherwise, it's 60, it's smooth, no crashes, no quest bugs. So overall, the experience is pretty polished, I would say, albeit a couple of hitches here or there, but nothing like what Obsidian had to deal with in the early 2010s where their games were. Honestly, it went even before that. The Alpha Protocols, and before that, I love KOTOR 2, but I love it with restored content mods. So yeah, like you're not dealing with that here. Obsidian's
Kingdom Come, okay, yeah, it's very good. I'm playing the first one since 2019. Still don't finish it because I'm not playing a bunch. I'm not playing a lot in a day. But it's really good. The first one is really good. Really interactive. Lots of consequences for the choices you make. And there's different, 3 different or 4 different ways to finish a quest. That's what I love about it.
Now we can finally
And I don't think Avowed has that depth.
a little bit about this story that is here. So
It's
as
not
you've
that
already
deep.
heard already, you're the envoy for the Aeterna Empire, and you're tasked with investigating this new plague known as the Dream Scourge, which is transforming the very land you are on, as well as the people who inhabit it. This world in a pretty natural way, with everyone knowing who you are, and that poses you.
I love the cinematic color palette too.
Throughout the game that can affect the various zones.
The
that
colorful.
with a believable level of authority.
The color of
The
it.
story primarily centered around the idea of taking your head out of the sand and accepting that harsh truth, with a strong focus on religious fanaticism as well as its consequences. Now, as a religious guy myself, if you will, I think that basing an entire game around the idea of gods and their purpose in this world is novel, especially for an RPG. I mean, Obsidian pretty much did that minus the RPG part with Pentiment, and I thought it was amazing. I think a lot of Avowed really just boils down to asking.
I don't think it matters that much if you do with religions or not, like Skyrim. Because it has religions too and it's still good. It doesn't bring it down, I mean. It doesn't bring the gameplay down or the story if you do it well. The second you don't have that much control over the quest like in the first game. That's bad. That's bad. I thought you have more control. Like I played a few hours ago, I played the first one. And I saw there's 3 or 4 ways to finish a quest well where I'm in the story at least. Maybe not for every quest, but see the monastery one when you are a monk. And how many ways you can finish that quest. Even more than 4 times. 4 ways to finish it, I think.
Great questions, but no single companion or character is profound enough to provide an equally interesting answer to those
Yeah,
questions.
people are
And
coming
all the
in.
times I felt the game was word salading me.
Stay in
a little
life.
bit. This is something the Pillars universe is known
Still
for.
pretty
It's kind
good,
of
yeah.
that high
Still pretty
fantasy
good.
you either love or hate, so I'll admit my bias here, and that
I
I'm
love
not
your-
in favor of this type of dialogue in games ever. It's the type of heavy terminology usage that for many players will root them in that world and want
I
them to
should
get
stream
intimate
more.
knowledge on everything from Wotica to the Dream Scourge to even the curse words that certain races use. And this game does have a glossary that'll inform you on all that. If you want to take that deep dive, you can. By the end of my experience, I felt pretty familiar on everything and everyone in this world. But for those who are maybe
It comes down not to the religions, but how well the story is written, I think. If that brings down the game or not.
long-time Pillars fans and are
Yeah,
worried
but
that
in the
Avowed is gonna be
second, you only have 2 ways. Either you don't do quest or kill the NPC. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I don't believe this at first.
bit too newcomer friendly. Take it from someone who's not played Pillars before that, yeah, this game will drop you in the deep end quite a bit. I think a lot of the problems I had with Avowed's terminology and world building elements may come down to a philosophical difference, if you will, rather than if you may or may not like it. Just to explain a little bit, what I mean is I think great world building stems from, even in fantasy, this level of a parallel to something, but Avowed and in turn Aeterna and in turn the Pillars universe just feels miles and miles and miles away from anything truly believable. So in turn, the world doesn't feel, to me at least, tangible in really
It doesn't feel that deep coming from an RPG, fantasy RPG, standpoint. Maybe from Pillars of Eternity game, yeah, but fits the lore better and everything better, but not an RPG game like Avowed. I don't know. Anybody here played Pillars of Eternity yet?
sense as I was playing through the story and as I'll get into with its characters especially. So a lot of the word salad, it just feels like people are bumbling jargon.
VMG, I hope you troll me right now.
You could have just told me the milk is over here.
I hope you
Still,
joke
there's some really cool
about
elements,
this.
Animancers who are
About Kingdom Come
animating
Deliverance too.
corpses by taking essence, which is life energy, from the wheel and putting it into these undead bodies and kind of having them
Sheesh.
serve as a workforce.
That's bad.
That sort of stuff did light my fire because I'm like, oh, interesting. I can see a pretty neat parallel there in a robotic workforce and sort of that dehumanization of it. What
The NPCs are more like robots in this game. A bit like robots.
is that like? How does that have an impact on things? How do other people view animancers and so on? That was
Oh, at least one NPC has a schedule and
more interest.
he trains or whatever. He trains with an axe.
Or to me. So when it gets into that sort of focus on life and death, that was more captivating. But just know if you're new to the Pillars universe and you kind of share my similar taste, you might start to feel a similar way as I did, where Avowed sometimes just loses you a bit in its own kind of sauce, if you will. Now onto the companions. These are the major characters who serve as windows into the world and the views people may hold, but with much more detail.
That's too bad.
More intimate connection. Now, of the 4 that Avowed puts in front of you in Kai,
are you far away in the story? Are you far enough, I mean, in the story? Because this only might be happening in the beginning with a few quests, but maybe it can happen. Maybe you have more choices later in the game, kind of like the first game. Maybe it's much more freedom on quests the longer you progress in the story, but I have 6 hours in it. No, 6 hours is too little. These games are like 200, at least 100 hours. So maybe it's more choices later in the game.
Marius, Giada, and Yatsli, they each have solid personalities, but lack the...
Tell me after you do like 50 hours.
Cut from a similar do-gooder cloth, they're just in different shades. So, for example, Kai will back me up in my more authoritarian methods. I mean, he's a former soldier, so it lines up. But he'll still condemn
I think I only have 50, 60 hours in the first game, and right now it opened up a lot.
I go too far to his liking. Now, that would be totally fine. That is his personality. That's his set of beliefs. That works. But the unfortunate part is there's no yin to the yang, right? There is no counter to someone who maybe would support my more righteous, adherent behaviors that is in that main party. So it makes it difficult to be evil because your whole party is kind of constantly against that, whereas...
At the beginning, it holds your hand. It's like a tutorial, VMG. It holds your hand a lot more. Then later, it lets you lose, lets you do your own thing, kind of. Is how Kingdom Come. But the tutorial phase is like 4 to 6 hours. It's Avowed, the one that I'm streaming.
Some of the very best RPGs of all time, when you're playing evil, you'll still have your crew who rocks with you, who's like, you know what?
Up to 6 hours, it may be only be the tutorial. You are doing the tutorial of the game right now, of KCD2.
But this man's doing what he's got to do. Like,
if it's like the first one, because the first one had 4 hours of tutorial.
Like all his methods, but I respect what he's got to do.
Then it opened up.
Avowed expects you to play as a good guy, because if you do, you're gonna have this much more ideal experience where like everyone around you is gonna be like, yeah,
Looks
nice,
weird.
like I'm here for the good of man.
Looks good to me, but it's still weird. The NPCs not reacting and the world being static is not that great to me. Not letting you be evil.
Kind too.
Enough.
It's like, but I want to be a jerk, and this game lets you do jerk things without jerk level reactions. It's so strange to me because it's almost like if they didn't open that door at all, it wouldn't have been
exactly
noticeable.
what
However,
Mattis
when I
says.
mention characters that are not evil and not really being able to be fully evil, this world lacking nuance, many people are going to take that as Avowed being like a Dragon Age the Veilguard moment. And while at times it does get close without me being this kind of like religious zealot I was trying to be in my first playthrough, I do think by the end it comes around to say that everyone relax. I felt like I was able to be enough of a jerk. Did I feel the game pulled a million punches along the way? Absolutely.
You cannot be enough of a jerk if you cannot kill everybody and everything, like every monster.
But I was still, we'll just say I was standing on my own 2 feet by the end. The last thing I want to say about the companions is really focusing on the missions, right? Like these are your loyalty missions. This is where you really win the faith of the people who are following you. And the game's most important characters feel underrepresented in this category. And this isn't just like preconceived notions. Like the game literally has a quest label called Companion.
The ranger skills look kind of boring, or he didn't show enough. He only show one type of shooting.
And I did one with Kai. By the end of the game, there's one with Marius, but in between you do have...
Are there enough? I wonder if there are enough skills for the ranger. I think J Baldino said that there are enough. And it's cool to play like the wizard, and only the warrior is boring.
I have 2 other companions in Yatsli and Giada who I asked other reviewers, no one could find them, and they played differently from me. Like I get it, some people will be like, oh, he's evil, so therefore, you know, maybe he missed it. But there are people who did like full good guy playthroughs, and they didn't find anything like that. So I don't want to put like 100% stamp on it, like, hey, it's not here, because I'm going to give the game the benefit of the doubt that I see enough choice in it where like maybe something got walled off for a lot of us. But right now it feels very uneven where these companion missions might be missing. And in turn, again, the companions feel underrepresented in what's needed.
Hopefully a DLC which adds their backstories will be the case in the future.
To get me a little bit closer to them. Like, is it a coincidence that I feel like Kai is probably the lead companion of the group, barring the fact that
it's like the type of game that I'll play for like 2 hours and then never open again. Well, I play any type of game like a few hours per week, and they're all fun to me because I just play so small, play so little of them. I think I never stopped playing any game because I hated it in the recent years. But I look at lots of reviews first before I get a game to be sure I like it. So this never happens. I never pre-order.
All right, so that helps a lot. But is it a coincidence that I feel close to him and interested in him the most?
I wait for the reviews.
Companion quest line that really explored.
I wait for a year to pass to have the game to be fixed. And then I play it just a few hours per week, and it's always fun.
His character a little bit. Was it
because of the
excellent?
scarcity?
No. Would I even say it was great? No. Was it decent? Yeah, good enough. And so I guess that's something, again, I don't define Obsidian games by that sort of metric, but it was decent enough where I was at least like, all right, he's cool, but what about the other characters? So I found that a little disappointing that it wasn't at least easy to find if they are in there. What Avowed really lacks is, as you're seeing here, depth in its reactivity. Many of your decisions will be acknowledged in the game's dialogue, but the actual world seldom shifts to your whims. And sure, your companions will vocalize their displeasure with the choice you've made, but they're going to get over it 99.9% of the time. You won't have to convince them.
Yeah, NPCs getting and companions getting over your bad choices is never good. Is holding you back from being evil.
Otherwise, in fact, they'll gaslight themselves into believing that what you did was the right thing. I mean, these people are ride or die. Say what you will, but they've got your back no matter what. Now, I think the opening zone, like Paradise, really starts strong.
They force you to be good, to become a good character and end it in a good way.
You have both personal and large-scale stakes in this world. But I feel like the narrative pattern really showed itself and led to some predictability. Every single zone will boil down to a choice between its people or the Aeterna Empire, with every decision, except one, lacking the nuance and no one wins feeling that Obsidian has provided so expertly in the past. So you'll venture throughout each of the zones and make choices that will decide the fate of its people. And by the end of the game, I was admittedly disappointed in the consequence, because the setup and where you see the consequence is in the end slides, but the world itself, you're going to see very little of that. Now, there were cool
Like things like in there, like even if I don't play the game for a week, I made it for a morning to play again. Yeah,
admits to this a lot. Like in Paradise,
the same for me.
There was a gang leader who I spared, and in turn, they did not attack me when I found a hideout later.
They're like immersed, living in the world.
Or even during the main quest, where I spared someone during the prologue, and I got a free pass from someone else because of what I did during that part of the storyline. This early commitment to the values that Avowed.
But first, I look at lots of reviews to get that game before getting it. To be sure, it's my type of games. Like I don't like science fiction too much, like Star Wars, Star Trek, and I know I'm not getting these games this fast because I might not like them, like medieval games, fantasy medieval
a lot of what
RPGs.
My disappointment. I think there are moments like this throughout the entirety of the game, but it just feels more and more spread out, and more like Obsidian was just
or at least action games.
The same reactivity Paradise was. So no doubt you're going to listen to this review. You might even play the first 10 hours and be like, what the hell is this guy talking about? What's he ranting and raving about? But I think as you get deeper into the game, you'll see more of what I mean, where that reactivity falls off pretty dramatically, and the game starts making excuses for itself. It's kind of like a gradual taking away of the steering wheel. For example,
you can see it everywhere that he's not reactive. NPCs just stand there.
There's something that I'll just say happens in the second zone where I went, okay, I'd like to support the Steel Garrote in what they're doing here. So I accepted a side quest that was unlocked after this point in the main quest that allowed me to handle the leader.
You feel like in a fake world.
So I went in fully expecting I could support them in their actions as well as disengage.
I'm going all in without any review, just the trailer.
Full evil route with it. Instead, I ended up disavowing her decisions because there was really no other choice, fighting them and killing them. And
if that works for you, that's great.
And a lot of Avowed, if you pay close attention, you'll see goes down that route where there are moments it feels a little more open.
For me, that doesn't work. And I didn't fail yet. Okay. Yeah, if that works for you, it's good.
Open and freedom of expression. But if you're trying to be like full renegade, very tough. If you're being a good guy, you might have none of the complaints I have right now. Now, you do get to customize your character to open things up. You choose a background for them where 95% of the options will result in flavor text. And this is
I like those backgrounds. They increase the replayability by a lot. And you choose different backgrounds each time you play.
Something that I did point out in my initial review of The Outer Worlds, where Obsidian was what I would define as rather coy with how they placed skill checks. So oftentimes in the early goings, skill checks existed, but they were impossible to miss because of the extremely low prerequisite. So in turn, the game created this illusion of surpassing some challenge in a unique way, when in fact, anybody with any build literally could have done it. The same could be said about that game when it came to failing to reward an evil outcome, which Avowed takes that mindset and triples down on, where a lot of my, say, more evil choices led to minimal or no reward at all, which I do think is a problem because you're incentivizing the player to only play one way when
minimal choices is never good.
Obsidian's motto is your world, your way. I think that, for example, if I find two people in Thirdborn that are causing some problems for my fellows in the Steel Garrote, I want to help out the Steel Garrote. So I'm going to go ahead, kill these two, and it's like, quest is over. No real XP reward, no cool loot on them, none of that. It just feels like they expected you to go the nice guy route.
Gives me vibes of IC Odyssey a bit. Just first person.
Every step of the way.
Not to me.
The predictability of player patterns was a bad choice because for someone like me who kind of went off.
Gives me Dragon Age, the Veilguard vibes. Which is not good. But I like the color of it. Even of Veilguard. I just don't like the story and the written dialogue in the Veilguard. I like the colors and the UI. The user interface is kind of the same or similar to me.
Beaten path and tried to play the game, I'd say, a little differently from others. I really couldn't. So that's my review of Avowed. Yeah, man, it is unfortunately a game that's just good. It's just all right to me. Is it worth your Game Pass download? Yeah, give it a try. You might like it a lot more than me. Is it worth your money? I would say in today's extremely competitive RPG market, as someone who is just coming off of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and get the slew of other titles in February,
go for KCD2.
Really doesn't stack up, but it is a great holdover game.
Still not as good as KCD2 maybe for me, but I'll play it in the future. I can't see you playing this game. Okay, I don't know if I'll play on stream, but I'll play on my free time.
But that is the disappointing part of all this. Is I don't describe.
But I want to play KCD2 on stream, and I just don't have the space on the PC to install it right now. Maybe in the future.
An Obsidian game, like, yeah, play when you're waiting for
To
something.
try some
That
cool
really
shit.
is, I think, the pocket Avowed finds itself in. Like, if you're looking at March, for example, you're like, it's gonna be pretty dry then, but I'm looking to play some other
Unique
stuff.
ways
I
to
think
do
we can hold off a
quests.
little bit. Like, that's kind of where I fall on it. Do I regret my time with Avowed?
Like
No.
I like to do when I replay a game.
Will I go back to Avowed? Probably not. Maybe to try out DLC.
Ooh, that's harsh.
Support
If he
these
doesn't
characters
want
in new and
to come back
interesting ways and
to
adding-
it.
Then I would maybe turn my eye toward it. But I think Starfield Shattered Space taught me enough in that regard where I'm like, I can't put all my hopes into a single DLC. So yeah, unfortunately, Avowed left me pretty bummed out. It was all right, but that's not the Obsidian I know. Does it remove some of my excitement for the Outer Worlds 2 might be your next question. The answer is no. That is a totally different team in a lot of ways, and a lot of the writers, based on my interview I did with Carrie Patel and Defining Duke.
Hopefully
it
the
seems
Outer
that
Worlds 2
original
will
writing
be
for Outer Worlds 1
way
carried over
better.
to The Outer Worlds 2, and I thought the Outer Worlds 1 was just expertly written. So I have not lost any hope. And again, to be clear,
Anybody
this is
played
not
the Outer
Starfield
Worlds?
situation or a Dragon Age Veilguard situation where this game is like so bad it's crippled my faith in the
I want to play
If
those
the
two
worst
in
thing
the
Obsidian
future.
has done is kind of delivered to me as a super fan, like this kind of, it's all right title. I can live with it after a pretty legendary stretch of loving everything they've done. So, you know, the drop off had to happen somewhere. I'm hoping they can pick things back up at the end of the year with the Outer Worlds 2, which I have no doubt will be
Okay,
excellent. But
like and
basically,
subscribe.
I shouldn't speak too soon then. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Avowed. Let me know your thoughts down below. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.